I, 17 male, cannot get my parents, 45 male, 44 female, to listen to me regarding my sister's, 6 females, educational needs. Okay, so I'm currently in my second year of college. Child genius, got fast-tracked through grades, and I have 2 younger sisters, Jess and Anna. Anna was born fully deaf and is starting elementary school this year. I'm not trying to throw my parents into a negative light. They do love us. They've provided us with every opportunity possible, and we have wanted for nothing growing up. Even though my parents were thrown when they found out Anna was deaf, they are musicians by trade, and both me and Jess have been involved with music from a young age. They learned ASL along with me and my sister, and tried their hardest to adapt. That said, I've always been closest with Anna as she's grown up, and she's like my best friend. She's always come with me if she's afraid or sick. She looks to me for interpretation or context when we're out, and she's always been my little shadow. So, out of everyone in our family, I feel like I know her the best. My parents are sending Anna to a private special needs school in the coming year, and I personally disagree with their choice. I looked into the place, took a virtual tour, and from everything I've seen and read, it seems to be catered more to students with severe mental disabilities or mobility impaired. In fact, I couldn't see a great deal about the services provided for deaf students at all. I brought this up to my parents, but they just brushed me off, saying it was what was best and they would take care of her. I asked why she can't go to a mainstream school, but they said there were no services for her. Well, I did a bunch of research. I contacted district superintendents, local council, even schools directly themselves. I even found a deaf school, only very slightly out of boundary, who said they were willing to be flexible. When I brought this to my parents, they got annoyed, saying that they knew what was best for their daughter and I should stay out of it, and that no school would be able to handle her hearing impairment and behavioral problems. I was stunned. Anna doesn't have behavioral problems. She's a bit willful, sure. She has a mind of her own, and she's always had a mischievous streak, but she's never acted out of control. She can read and write above average for her age. I know because I read with her, and while she's a little slow on the math front, I doubt it's any real cause for concern. I asked if she'd been diagnosed, and they cited the times she's wandered off during trips to the theater or made noises during the performance. They haven't seen a doctor or any professional about this. They just saw a deaf child being forced to sit still for hours, not understanding everything that's going on around her, and acting out of boredom and frustration, and decided that she's got behavioral issues. Anna is a bright kid, and while the school they've picked out looks amazing for kids with disabilities, I just don't think it would suit her specifically. But despite all my arguments, and despite me spending more time with Anna than either of them combined, they still tell me to shut up and not get involved with their decisions because they are the adults, which really annoys me because I've been forced to act like an adult my whole life. But as soon as I want to say on something actually important, they shut me down and potentially take away my sister's potential to thrive. And now in the comments, it sounds like trying to rationally convince your parents of your position has not worked for you. I think you have 2 approaches you can take going forward. First, you could find someone else who your parents will listen to. Could you get someone from the school for disabilities to speak with your parents honestly? Perhaps a teacher, or the parent of another student, or a doctor? Alternatively, do you know any other families with a deaf child, or deaf families, who could speak to the importance of a specialized education? Second, you could start your conversation with your parents not with an argument, but with a genuine listening ear. It sounds like they're exhausted and frustrated, and this might be impacting their decisions. Ask them how they are feeling. Say you just want to understand their decision, you don't want to fight about it, and then actually try to understand it. This might take a few conversations for them to let their guard down, but if they seem receptive to hearing your feelings, tell them what you said here. I feel like I've been made to be an adult since I was so young, but now when I want to be a part of the adult decision-making in this family, you are shutting me out, and that makes me feel frustrated and angry. I also feel defensive of my sister. I want the best possible education for her, where she feels affirmed and supported, and can communicate with the people around her. Can you understand those feelings? When someone is making a bad decision, empathy can go a lot farther than arguments. This goes for them too. If you just ask for them to understand your feelings, they might be more willing to hear you out than if you ask them to admit that they were wrong and transfer your sister to the other school. You may also have to play the long game here ultimately. If your parents remain steadfast in their choice, you may have to let your sister go to this school for a year. Take note of how her behavior changes, whether she likes the school, whether she makes friends, or has any other deaf children to play with, and so on and so forth. She can always transfer out, and your parents may be more willing to try the other school if they see that this one has a negative impact on her. And OP replies, "Thanks for this. I think the main issue is that my mum and dad just learned ASL and assumed the issues raising a deaf child ended there. Anna has actually never met another deaf person before, let alone another family, and we don't have any hearing impaired relatives. They have a very heavy focus on raising her normally and see any challenges as defects in her rather than her own limitations. I might try and reach out to local groups in my area for advice on this, but due to COVID and resistance from my parents, this might be difficult. I think another issue in discussing this stems from the fact that their parenting has always been very hands-off, emotionally speaking, so if and when Anna gets into trouble, they don't really take the time to understand why she's doing what she's doing. They don't know a great deal about deaf culture or how deaf people might see or interact with the world. I'm aware that I might seem like a know-it-all or a brat, and I really don't mean to be critical of my parents. I just wish they'd be a bit more flexible in their thinking, especially when it comes to Anna. They don't like to admit they don't know everything, and I often worry this is going to affect her more harshly as she grows up. Maybe bring up the possibility of an evaluation by a pediatric occupational therapist. They are trained professionals to evaluate a child's occupational profile and whether she's ready for school and which type of school would be the best for her, taking her resources and barriers into consideration. And maybe instead of arguing with a "I know this is best" approach, which your parents have obviously already disregarded, try to understand their reasoning for choosing said school. Because in your post, you haven't mentioned why they want to send her to a special needs school, only that they want to do it. It may come across differently when they speak to a professional. Dad to a deaf daughter here, based solely on what you have written, it sounds like the deaf school would be a good compromise. Caters specifically to deaf needs while not simply being a special needs school. I know my daughter gets a lot of reassurance and benefit from interacting with both hearing and deaf people, so you should at least try to convince/facilitate that, separate from any schooling situation. And back up to the post, we have an edit. Sort of an update, but not really. I just wanted to clarify a few recurring points that have arisen throughout both comments and PMs. 1. I mentioned the skipping grades thing because I thought it would explain why I was a 17-year-old sophomore in college and why I felt like I was qualified to intervene with the decision-making process. I've been involved in adult conversations and have been surrounded by adults who regard and treat me as a peer for most of my life. I apologize if I was unclear. 2. Someone mentioned that my parents would recognize behavioral issues in Anna because they have raised 2 children before her. I would disagree with this as 1, every child is different. Jess and I have very different temperaments and personalities, same as Anna. And 2, my parents have raised 2 hearing children who are regarded as intelligent and mature for their age. Seeing a deaf 6-year-old acting like a 6-year-old, I would argue, is relatively new to them. 3, I have actually gotten involved with a local deaf advocacy group for deaf and hard of hearing adults and their friends and families. We are having a meeting via Zoom on Monday night, and I'm looking forward to getting their insight. 4. On a slightly more serious note, some of you have expressed concern about my mum and dad's parenting and that I'm being parentified, that they are ableist, that I'm too young to have these concerns regardless of my intelligence or maturity. I have thought on this a lot, and on some level, I think you might be right. My parents don't like to be told that they are wrong or made to feel like they don't know something, and I don't believe they have adapted to Anna's hearing impairments as well as they believe, and on some level, think it reflects badly on them. Admittedly, I can see some of their flaws reflected in me, and I'm trying to work on that. I do wonder if one of the reasons Anna is so attached to me is because I do give her affection and attention where our parents aren't as forthcoming. Regardless of whether I'm too young, there is a little girl that needs someone to rely on, and if that's me, then I'll take up that mantle. I love my sister and I want to strive to make the world better for her. And 5, I'm going to try a more subtle approach to this, rather than treating it like a debate with my parents. Still working on those flaws. If anything comes of it, I'll be sure to update you. Thank you for all your comments and advice. It's been great to hear from so many people. And now, on to the update. Hi everyone. About 98% of you were super wonderful on my last post and seemed genuinely invested, so I thought I'd give you all an update. It's been just under a week now, and after trying some of the different tactics and talking points that you suggested, in addition to reaching out to the deaf and hard of hearing community, my parents and I have come to a compromise, if only to shut me up. But I'm not the only one that's important here. That would be Anna, 6 female. So come the new school year, Anna will be going to the school my parents chose, but we, including me, will be keeping in close contact with her teachers, specialists, etc., her progress, and talking to Anna herself about how she feels. If it seems like it isn't a great fit, we will be transferring her to the deaf school. It's a little out of the area, but I think we can make it work. I did open up to my parents a bit, as much as they could handle, and told them that I feel like I've been, not robbed, but had a stunted childhood, and that my academic abilities forced me to grow up quickly. That, coupled with their emotional distance and lack of physical presence with Anna, made me angry and frustrated that my opinions on her future weren't being taken into account. I wish I could say that was what did it, but honestly, my points about the school not teaching Anna independence and other arguments brought up on the original post probably eased them over to my side a bit. I kept my temper even this time. I mentioned in my edit on the last post that I'd gotten in contact with a deaf advocacy group, and they've provided some wonderful resources. So hopefully sometime soon, Anna will finally be able to meet kids and adults like her. She is super excited by this. She is the least reserved and most outgoing sibling out of us 3, so I have no doubt she'll make friends quickly. I've also made the decision to start seeing a therapist to maybe work on some of the issues that I've been reflecting on and to get some emotional support when my mum and dad drop the ball. I don't see them changing or even admitting they need to change anytime soon, but that doesn't mean I have to stay complacent. That's more or less the main chunk of what I wanted to say. I noticed the rules say that we aren't allowed to upload images, so I'll just describe the drawing Anna gave me to pin up on my office wall. She's a brilliant little artist. I'm not even biased. An ocean surface. A large boat approaches from the left-hand side, full of garbage. A great blue whale stands, mid-breach, opposing, brandishing a gun in one flipper. A speech bubble from the whale reads, "No!" while the ambiguously gendered humans on the garbage boat scream in terror, presumably ready to flee. Her kindergarten assignment was to come up with a way that we can protect our oceans from pollution, and personally, I think she hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much to everyone for your thoughts and feedback. And now in the comments, you fought for her. That's amazing. I know we're strangers, but I was 17 years old once, and I know how hard it can be to stand up to the adults in your life at that age, so I'm really proud of you. And I'm glad your sister has you in her life. You did a good thing. And tell her that drawing is awesome. You're an amazing brother, and I commend you for standing up for your sister's education. I have a degree in American Sign Language and deaf culture, and I know how isolating it can be for deaf children who are forced to mainstream into programs that don't cater to their specific needs. I'm so glad that you had a deaf and hard of hearing advocacy group reach out so they can help your parents make informed decisions on what is best for your sister. Good job. I am severely hearing impaired, have been since childhood, along with my brother. I was raised in the hearing world and have always had to accommodate the world. Never had any idea the world should maybe try to understand me, and I want to applaud you for standing up for your sister. If you aren't hearing impaired or deaf, it's very hard to understand how casually you're excluded from things with impatience or thoughts that you aren't very bright. Putting your sister with a group of people with the same impairment is going to grow her confidence by leaps and bounds. Kudos to you for being a wonderful big brother. And OP responds, I know I can never fully understand what it's like, but luckily, Anna is excellent at making her thoughts and feelings known, and I can't wait for her to start meeting people like her. I really wish that this had a happier ending. Yeah, the parents had no intention of ever admitting they could be wrong and ever let Anna transfer out of the school that they chose. That said, I really hope the brother doesn't give up and keeps advocating for her. Props to him for working on what he can. As the older brother of a deaf sister, this post is heartbreaking. Layers upon layers of sadness, hoping that this story ends up with what is best for Anna, but God. Based on what I've seen, that is not often the case. I hope OP stays connected not only with therapists, but also with the larger deaf community. And edit, just to be clear, my experience is different from OP. My sister is only a bit younger, and she went to local schools, even though they sucked. She was always strongly supported by my parents and myself, and she actually went on to get a doctorate, and she's a total badass. The thing to remember is, deafness is not necessarily a handicap. I, 32 male, just found out my coworker, 21 female, is my long-lost niece. I don't even know how to bring it up. So basically, my older brother, who would be 40 male but he overdosed 4 years ago, starting from when he was a teenager, made all kinds of bad decisions. Tons of debt, failing out of school, legal trouble with DUIs and drugs, several failed attempts at rehab, being involved with questionable people, etc. At one point, when he was still living with us, we had this strange woman repeatedly showing up drunk at our house with a baby/toddler. I couldn't really tell as I was a kid myself, but I think the baby was not a newborn, but not walking or talking yet either. She claimed the child was my brother's and was demanding money. This woman looked older than my brother. She was also drunk and aggressive and didn't seem right in the head. And my mum, 58 female at the time, just basically saw this woman as a threat and either threatened or just called the cops every time she showed up. Eventually, she stopped showing up. No idea what happened to her. Since then, my mom has expressed that she feels bad about that, says she wonders about the baby girl on the off chance she was actually my brother's, as the baby had red hair and so did my brother and me, and wishes she had reacted more rationally. Especially since my brother died, she's been bringing this up more often and saying that she has dreams about that baby sometimes. I know my mum struggled a lot with guilt since my brother died, since she tried to help him so many times and couldn't really save him from throwing his life away. So I submitted my DNA to a website. My mum doesn't know, and I didn't want to tell her and get her hopes up. Well, I found out that one of the closest matches, other than the people I already know that I'm related to, is my coworker. Her name is really unusual, so it's most definitely her and not someone else with her name. We have been working together for about 2 years, and I've been her supervisor for most of that time. We work well together, but we aren't close. I don't think she's ever told me anything about her family except her cats, so I don't even know how to bring this up. I don't know how to even look her in the eye the next time that we have a shift together. We have different shifts tomorrow, thank God. If the DNA test brought up a stranger, I had a perfect plan for what to write to them, but I had no plan at all for if it was someone I knew. Should I call her? Talk about it at work? I don't know when she's going to see my name as a match. I don't know how to ask her, hey, is your mum that crazy drunk foreign lady who used to try to get child support from my brother? I don't know how to ask her to come meet my mother and bring her closure. And I'm afraid now that she'll want something from me or my family, like unpaid child support. It's deserved, but I can't exactly afford it. My mum isn't rich either after paying a bunch of legal fees for my brother, or that she'll want a family relationship with me when I don't know how to suddenly switch gears in my head and become someone's uncle instead of a supervisor. I know those things would be an issue no matter who my niece was, but it seems different when my work life comes into it and when it's someone I already know. I mean, I figure if she's looking for her birth family, she probably wants a relationship. I knew my mum would want a relationship, so that wasn't a problem for me until I knew that I'd see this person every day. Any advice about how to raise this issue, please? And now in the comments, I think with DNA websites, they have to have samples from both parties to compare it, which means she probably got an email or alert of some kind about the DNA samples matching. But I wouldn't assume anything. Maybe just ask her if she's ever tried it, and if she says yes, elaborate and ask which one, and explain that you used the same one. OP says, Oh yeah, I'm sure she submitted her own DNA to the website. I would feel awkward about bringing it up in a roundabout way like that, especially since she and I don't really talk about non-work related things ever. So even if she hadn't seen the results yet, she would know something was up. I think that would be more awkward than just asking her directly. The confirmation would still be a good idea. If nothing else, it lets her know that you are the person who the site connected her to. It also acts as an opener. Once she confirms it, you might just next lead with, "I think we should go get coffee later. It seems like we have a lot to talk about." I would suggest being prepared to try to be diplomatic regarding both your brother and her mother. You won't want to lie to her, but you may want to be careful about how blunt you are about what you saw of their problems. At the same time, such info on tendencies towards addiction could be good info for her to have. And OP says to that, "You were probably right. Talking it out over coffee or something is probably better than trying to do it at work or on the phone. Do you have any idea for how to begin a conversation like that? My mind is doing a total blank. It sounds simple, but I can't even think." And yeah, good call about being diplomatic too. I've been around my brother's crazy for so long, my tendency is to be a bit flippant about it. Maybe it's a coping mechanism, or maybe I am just out of sympathy for him after everything he put my mum and me through. But it might be a sensitive subject for her. I'd probably suggest starting off by asking her about what her life has been like. One big thing will be to try to gauge what her relationship with her mother is like. There's a pretty good chance that her mother has told your niece that she tried repeatedly to approach your family, your mum, for support and was refused. That's accurate, frankly, but you'll need to explain the context of it from your family's perspective. You'll probably want to avoid mentioning that her mum seemed off, but much more focus on that the brother was heavily around a bad crowd. And so, as a result of all the crazy experiences that resulted from that, you all did not trust the story of anyone around him. She will probably have loads of questions about your brother and your family, so you can ask her if she has such questions. But she probably will be ready with a lot of questions, such that you won't really have to guide the conversation much yourself. Hey, fun fact! The other day, I read that only 1% of the human population has red hair because it's recessive. You have red hair and I have red hair. What are the chances of two people in the same room having red hair and aren't related? 1 in 10,000, that's what. You remind me of my dead brother. Or not. And back to the post, mini update. I ended up asking her directly via text. It's definitely her that I matched with, which I don't doubt at all. Her name is very unique. Anything beyond that is unconfirmed. We're going to get coffee after work tomorrow and talk. And now, on to the update. Thanks everyone for your advice about how to talk to my niece. It helped sort my thoughts out and consider things I hadn't thought of. Even the people who were harsh, it made me realize what my mum and I might look like from her point of view. I texted my coworker about the DNA match, and she agreed to meet with me after work the next day. It was an uncomfortable conversation and a very uncomfortable workday, but it wasn't horrible. Here is the gist of what I found out. We are pretty sure that we are uncle and niece. We don't know for sure if she's the same baby who that woman brought to our house all those years ago, but it seems likely. The timing lines up. But the only way to know for sure would be for my niece to ask her mother, which she doesn't want to do. She has known for most of her life that her mother's boyfriend who raised her was probably not her biological father, but it was confirmed with a DNA test several years ago. She still calls him her dad. It made the conversation confusing a few times. She never wanted to meet her biological father. She did the test more out of curiosity about her ethnicity and for medical reasons. She did have a rough childhood, but she says she and her family are in a better situation now. At the time, that was all she told me, and then she changed the subject. She's thinking about meeting my mother and having a relationship, but she needs some time to decide. She said that if she decides against contact, she would still be okay with me telling my mum about her so my mum can have some closure, just so long as I don't give my mum her contact info without permission, which of course I'd never do. I haven't told my mum about finding her yet, and I won't until she makes a decision. And I brought up the issue about our work situation. Now if I recommend her for a promotion, it's suddenly nepotism, even if I would have done that anyway. The company might transfer one of us to another department or location if they find out. She said that she didn't want to lie and wouldn't mind being transferred and might even prefer another location. I dealt with the HR disclosure. They're talking to the both of us separately and reviewing policy to come up with a fair solution. I typed most of that yesterday evening. After our initial conversation, my niece and I spent the next 2 days at work basically pretending like nothing happened. But then, as I was typing the update post, I got a text from her asking if I could meet up and talk again, and I figured I'd wait for that to post an update. So this morning, we met up for coffee again, and my niece asked some more questions. Some things about my brother's medical history, then just a little bit about what he was like, what my mum's like, what our extended family is like, etc. I was honest about my brother's issues, but I tried to be sensitive and tone down the attitude that I usually have about him. It actually made me really emotional. I mean, crap. My brother was a train wreck for most of my life, but once upon a time he had been someone that I looked up to, who played catch with me and helped me with homework. I loved him. I just didn't love the person that he became. Anyway, by then, I felt like the ice was broken and the conversation was more personal, so I asked my niece again what her life had been like. Long story short, it turns out her mum was once a prostitute. That's why she wasn't interested in meeting her biological father, and why she hadn't thought her mum even knew who her father was. She told me about how she spent the earliest years of her life in extreme poverty, having to shoplift necessities, until her mum and her mum's boyfriend managed to find stable jobs. It made me feel like a complete monster. My whole life, I'd thought of my niece's mother, assuming it's the same woman who showed up at our house back then, as some horrible older woman who helped drag my teenage brother deeper into a wretched lifestyle. But it turned out she was just selling sex to survive. She didn't lure him in. She didn't want him. He went looking for her. That flipped a switch in my head for some reason. I don't know. To clarify, I was like 10 to 11 years old when the woman was showing up, so even if I had known better, it's not like I could have made a difference either way. But it still hit me hard to think about how I'd been judging her and trying to justify my mum's denying the baby because I thought it was necessary to protect my brother back when it seemed like there could still have been hope for him. I was really shocked with some of the details of what my niece told me. When I found out it was my coworker, of course I freaked out about how to actually handle the situation, but I guess in some ways I felt relieved? Absolved? Because she seemed like she turned out okay. She's employed, in college, hard-working, and is super responsible. I wouldn't have guessed that she'd had a rough childhood from what I knew of her. Finding out the full details, there was more to it than what I typed here, made me feel like a monster. She cried, I nearly cried, and we hugged awkwardly. She's still undecided if she wants any contact with my mom, but she says she's glad that we had this conversation. She says there aren't many people she can talk about her past with. I'm glad we talked too. There were a lot of feelings about my brother that I've pretty much been suppressing. It's probably been good for me to actually have to process them, even if it hurt. I'm also glad I got to help her in some way by being a listening ear, and I'm glad that I got to know her a bit, even if she ends up deciding she doesn't want a relationship with my side of the family, or ends up transferring and we don't see each other at all anymore. Thanks again everyone here for all the advice. I was able to go into the conversation a lot more prepared than I would have been otherwise. And now in the comments, take it step by step. Maybe you both can develop a close friendship, but time will only tell. I hope she's slowly willing to let you into her life. And OP says, yeah, I'm just gonna respect her space and see when she reaches out again. I told her if she feels the need to talk again, that I will be there. And she said she would let me know. Thanks for the update. Your niece sounds like a very resilient woman. And OP replies, yeah, I'm honestly amazed. Before I knew she was my niece, I never would have thought that she'd had anything that horrible in her past at all. I thought that she was naive, if anything. There was this one time when she was new to the job when I saw her giving money to a homeless guy who wasn't allowed at our business because he had harassed guests and employees before. I told the guy to leave, and she was angry about it. I explained why I yelled at him, and she seemed to understand, but after that, I thought she was just extremely sheltered and didn't realize how unpredictable or dangerous some homeless people could be. And today I find out it's probably the opposite. She knows probably better than anyone, but she just has a lot of empathy. It just made me rethink a lot of things. So happy to see an update and keep us posted. Please consider therapy for yourself. This is a lot to deal with, and you have handled it so well. And OP says, thanks. Yeah, it might be helpful. I saw a grief counselor when my brother died, but only for a few sessions. Maybe she can help with this kind of thing too, or refer me to someone else. And now on to this second update. My niece agreed to meet my mum. What are some things that I should keep in mind? Thanks to everyone who left advice or kind words on my previous posts. A few people asked for more updates, and I thought it definitely wouldn't be a bad idea to get more advice about how to actually handle the meeting between my niece and mum. So, my niece decided that she is willing to meet my mum. She gave me a letter to pass on to her, asked me to tell her how my mum reacted, and help set up a time and a place. I already gave it to my mum after I read it with my niece's permission, so I can't share the exact words, but here's the gist of it. First, she introduced herself by name, age, what she's learning in college, and the family that she grew up with, basic stuff. And then she went on to explain some things that we had already spoken about in person, basically about how she had an extremely difficult life in her early childhood, that she always knew her father wasn't really her father, but hadn't thought her biological father even had any idea she existed, let alone that his family would know that she had existed. She wrote that when she found out that we had known about her and refused to help. She was angry. She said she understood why we wouldn't want to give her mother any money, but there were other things that we could have given. She wrote about some of the things that she had been through and how it could have been avoided if we had helped her even a little. To be honest, that part was pretty hard to read. My niece even said as I was reading it, "Don't worry, I know it wasn't your fault. You were just a kid." And looked like she might be afraid of how I would react. I told her I didn't blame her at all for being mad at my mum, and I wouldn't blame her for being mad at me either. She just nodded and didn't look me in the eye. After that part, she had written something really nice, that she knew me and I was a good man, so she knows my mother must have been a good mother, and that she was sorry to hear that my brother/her father had died, and that she knows how it feels when someone you love keeps making the wrong choices over and over, and that my mother shouldn't blame herself for that. In the rest of the letter, she wrote some religious things. I'm not really religious, but I respect it. My mum kinda pretends to be religious, but doesn't ever actually go to church. She said she had been praying for the strength to forgive my mum, and she believed God wouldn't have let her go through those things in her childhood if there wasn't a reason. And that there also must be a reason why I found her now, and that if my mum was willing, she was ready to meet face to face. I told my mum about finding her yesterday. She was shocked, asked tons of questions, including a bunch that I didn't know the answers to, and finally, I gave her the letter and a picture my niece had given me to pass on. My mum was so excited she burst into tears and kept saying, "She looks exactly like my brother," and pointed out every single feature of hers and how it apparently looked just like him or like my dad, who was also deceased. To be honest, I don't really think it was that obvious of a resemblance, but that's not important. Then she read the letter and she was inconsolable. She full-on sobbed for about 2 hours. It was about as bad as my brother's funeral. Even after she calmed down, she would burst into tears every once in a while for the rest of the day. But eventually, she mellowed out enough to think of a few different dates, times, and places to meet up. I texted these to my niece, and she said she'd look over her schedule and get back to me. So I guess what I want to ask is, since I'm kinda playing diplomat here, can anyone think of things that I should keep in mind? Of course, my niece's preferences are going to take priority over suggestions, but some issues I've been particularly wondering about are, should we meet in public, as it's neutral territory, or invite my niece over to our house so we don't have to worry about other people being around and making things awkward? Part of the reason that first conversation with my niece over coffee was so uncomfortable was because there were so many other people around, I think. My mum keeps saying that we need to invite my niece to my cousin's wedding in February and introduce her to the rest of the family. I think that's a terrible idea. Way too soon and way too many people at once. But my mum says that if we don't at least ask, it's like we don't consider her a part of the family. I think if we ask, we are putting her in a position of having to say no and worry about being rude. But my mum will not let it drop. For the rest of the post, I'm asking for open-ended advice, but on this particular issue, I'm mostly asking for people to tell me that I'm right, and for ideas of things I can say to get my mum to drop it. Should I start acting more friendly to my niece at work? Obviously, I'm not going to be like, "Hey niece, it's me, your favorite uncle," and draw a bunch of attention to it, but now it's like, when we're at work, we act like nothing happened, and it's weird. Should I at least smile and chat with her more? Might not be a problem for much longer, since my niece is probably transferring to a different location. And, in general, anything else I should keep in mind for the meeting with my niece and my mum? Things I should talk with or ask either of them about beforehand? Thanks again for all the advice so far. And now in the comments, as for the wedding, I'd say not to bring it up in this meeting. If she is insistent on asking, maybe wait for a few days and text her that your mom wants to include her, but make sure she knows it's completely fine to say no. This way, she doesn't have to make a decision on the spot. And OP says, thanks. Me asking later is probably the best compromise. I would say be honest with niece and warn her about your mum's thinking. Give her an opportunity to prepare. There's a snarky part of me that is glad your mother feels bad because your niece went through a lot, but whatever. I think the priority of the meeting should be your niece's comfort, which means that she should feel secure and she should feel like she's in control. I know this meeting will be emotional for your mother, but your niece is the priority. A neutral area is definitely better, but it should be at a place that your niece can feel secure and has the ability to leave at a moment's notice if it gets too much or something goes wrong. Make sure your niece has an exit plan, and also maybe come up with a signal that she could subtly make if she wants you to change the subject. Ask your niece if she has a preference for where the meeting should be, and ask her if there are any things that she doesn't want discussed, so you could prep your mother beforehand. You are going to need to rehearse with your mother because she is the biggest liability. It could be that if she starts sobbing about how your niece looks like your brother, and your brother was really an awesome guy, it will upset your niece. You also don't want your mother to justify or try to defend any of her past choices, because since your niece was hurt from them, it will seem like your mother is minimizing the pain that she went through from her childhood. With regards to work, keep it as it always is, or act as if she's a cousin or something. You could smile and nod, but you are not enthusiastically hugging them and making a scene every time you see them. Good luck. And OP replies, thanks. This is all good advice. I'll talk to niece about a signal or things that she doesn't want to bring up. I don't think my mum will try to defend herself, since she feels really bad about it, but it's possible she'll try to do the cry and make it about her thing. I'll talk about that. If she really feels guilty, there's a really good chance she's going to want absolution in order to stop feeling guilty, which means she's going to try to justify her actions in order to get your niece to forgive her so she could stop feeling guilty. Don't let that happen. It minimizes your niece's suffering, and it will probably make her mad. And now back up to the post, there is an update. Thanks for all the advice. We're going to meet at my mum's place next Sunday, my niece's choice, as we couldn't really find any restaurants with private areas, and our local library has kinda weird hours that we couldn't make work. I also just straight up asked her how she felt about being friendly at work, because it's awkward to basically pretend like nothing happened, and she said she felt awkward about it too, but was acting that way because she thought that's what I would want. I talked to my mum about all the things that you've all mentioned. And now for update 3. Introducing my long-lost niece to my mum did not go very well. So, it was a disaster. There is so much I should have done but didn't think to do at the time, and I just feel like I messed up big time. I don't know what to do about it. I tried to keep in mind all the suggestions I got, like before the meeting, I asked my niece where she wanted to meet, if she wanted to bring anyone with her, if there was anything I should tell my mum not to talk and ask about, and she just said, I'm sure I can handle it, and couldn't think of anything. But she did agree that if she wanted help getting my mum to back off, that she would look at me and blink 3 times. I talked to my mum first too, and basically just tried to warn her don't come on too strong, be sensitive, don't try to defend her actions. She agreed not to do any of those things, but So my niece shows up at my mum's place. which was my niece's choice, and right away my mum is all over her, hugging and touching her hair and crying. My niece didn't seem to be enjoying that very much, but she tolerated it. I would have intervened, but she didn't signal me by blinking, and it didn't last very long. So I thought, okay, I'll do something about it if it happens again, but let it drop. My mum asked my niece a bunch of questions, and the whole vibe was honestly uncomfortable. Maybe she felt like she was being interrogated. They weren't ill-intended questions, but they were personal. Things like, what does her name mean? What neighborhood does she live in? Does she have a boyfriend? What's she going to do after college, etc.? My niece was kind of stiff and just answered the questions, but not warmly. In hindsight, I probably should have intervened, but I didn't think much of it. She didn't use the signal, and she was kind of the same way, stiff and impersonal when she and I first talked about being related, but then the next time we talked, she warmed up. So I thought maybe she just needed to warm up. The real disaster happened when my mum brought up my niece's childhood and went and did exactly what she said she wouldn't do, and worse. I didn't really do my part either, and I'm kicking myself, but it escalated so fast. I'm gonna remember what was said as best as possible. I can't think of an easy way to sum this up, it just escalated so fast. So Mum says, "I'm so sorry that we didn't take you in when you were a baby. I didn't know." Niece, I forgive you. I believe you have to understand from my perspective. I was just trying to protect my baby. Your father, me, hey, Mum, niece, he wasn't a baby. I was a baby. I was an actual baby. And my mum replies, he was my baby. You'll understand that when you have kids. And from my perspective, there was this strange ethnicity woman. Niece replies, what does being ethnicity have to do with it? Mum replies, nothing. It wasn't because she was ethnicity. This woman was shouting. She was acting like she was on something. My kid answered the door, points to me, and I didn't know what she might have done to my name, or niece cuts her off and says, she wouldn't have done anything to him. You think she'd hurt kids just because she's ethnicity? Mum says, I wasn't saying that. I was saying, yes you were. I was saying I didn't know this woman. She could have been anyone. I didn't know if you were even really brother's name's child. Niece replies, do you think if my mum was going to lie about a person being my father, she would have picked someone who lived here? Gestures around my mum's place, which is not very classy. I'm like, hey! And my mum says, well, I didn't know. I asked brother's name, and he said he didn't know that woman, and he had no idea. Niece says, right, because men never lie. Hey! Well, all I'm saying is, if she had gone through the proper courts and... She was an undocumented prostitute. Of course she didn't. She then grabbed her shoes and sprinted out of my mum's place. I ran after her to make sure she was okay. She said to leave her alone. I asked if I could at least give her a ride, and she screamed, go away. So I did. And I was worried because this neighborhood isn't the safest place to walk, so I texted my niece and apologized again and said it's okay if she doesn't want to talk, but please text me when she gets home so I know she's okay. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, I don't know, but I was worried. She did text me back later and said she was okay. She also apologized for losing her cool, but said she was going to call out of work for a few days and don't contact her until she comes back. So my question is, now what? I'm still at my mum's place and I want to yell at her, but she's already sobbing. I feel horrible and I don't know how to fix this. I didn't foresee my mum saying those things about my niece's mum's ethnicity, and I should have intervened, but I kind of panicked and I couldn't think of what to say. My mum is a kind person, but not always tactful. I really appreciate any advice. I don't really have anyone to talk to about this. Most of my friends are from work, and I can't talk to them about it for obvious reasons. And now in the comments, your mum sounds racist and tone-deaf. She wanted to excuse her cruelty and be released of all fault rather than care about someone else's feelings. She committed an act of opportunity where it should have been a place of healing. Did she only want to meet niece to absolve her of guilt, or to let it be known that she is indeed not an awful person, and not because she wanted to reconnect with family? She violated so many boundaries from step 1 and made no apologies for it. An apology followed by an excuse is no apology at all, it's an excuse. And OP replies, "This is a good way to put it. And I'll try to talk to her about it and explain it to her this way, though I don't know if it'll do any good in helping her realize what she did wrong. It's really upsetting for me to think about because I really thought she did care about my niece and wanted to connect with her. But yeah, it just seemed like she was being selfish and trying to make excuses to prove that she is not an awful person. The best you can do now is to leave her and respect whatever decision she makes." OP replies, "Yeah, you didn't take any of our advice. Honestly, she might be better off without you all." OP replies, "I tried to, but in the moment, my head couldn't keep up with the conversation and figure out what happened." And now, on to the final update. Here's the gist of what happened since that awful disaster of a reunion. I talked to my mum about what went wrong with the things that she said to my niece. I basically told her that her apologies weren't really apologies, and she was just trying to defend herself and not apologize. At first, my mum was argumentative with me about it, but eventually she admitted that I was right, and she didn't handle it well. She found this book about how to apologize to people, and she said it helped. My mum says she doesn't know why she brought up my niece's mother's ethnicity. She said it just slipped out. She agreed that she needs to be more sensitive about that kind of thing. I'm concerned that it'll just slip out again. So if anyone has any resources for old white people on how not to be prejudiced, let me know. Especially books. My mum insists that only books are reliable, and anything you read on the internet or see on the TV is lies. She and I worked together to write an apology letter to my niece for her to read whenever she wants to, if she wants to. No pressure to respond. She apologized for saying offensive things and for making the reunion about defending herself and not being considerate of my niece's feelings, and then thanked her for the kindness of coming and said she'd like to try again. But she understood if my niece wouldn't want to, and she wished her the best regardless. And my niece was kind enough to give us another chance. We all met up again to try and talk things out one more time, and this time it went much better. My niece vented some things, but also said she understood why my mum did what she did, and then she was like, "You can't change the past. All we can do is move forward." And then they had a nicer conversation about random subjects that my mum brought up. My mum wants to pay for some of my niece's college. She can't really afford much though. My niece didn't want to take the money, but finally agreed and promised to pay it all forward once she reaches her career end goal. Speaking of careers, my niece is actually leaving her current job to work at a more future career relevant job starting later this spring. I'll miss seeing her around at work, but I'm happy for her. And for as long as she's in the area, she and I are going to get together every month for lunch and or something fun. Getting to know my niece has made me remember some of the good times with my brother, like when we used to go to the movies together or hang out at the arcade and pizza place or amusement parks. I used to think he was the coolest and most fun person in the world. It brought up grief, not only for my brother, but also knowing my niece and I have a similar age gap, how I might have been that person for her. I'm really sad that I missed out on that, but now we have a chance to make up for lost time. My mum and my niece both like baking and cooking, so they're gonna start occasionally meeting up at my mum's house to do that and exchange recipes. My niece doesn't want to spend holidays with us, come to family get-togethers, or meet anyone else in our family. At least not for now, possibly never. I totally understand and respect this. I really can't thank you all enough for all the support, advice, and kind words. I don't know how this situation would have turned out without all of your help. And now in the comments, thank you for taking the time to update. It's funny how things work out sometimes. Wishing you and your niece the very best. I'm happy that you've all been able to establish a relationship with your niece and have her in your lives. Please stop taking the blame for awkward meetings and uncomfortable conversations. The way you handled all this was very thoughtful and emotionally mature. You handled it all a lot better than some people would have. And OP says, "Thank you so much. I feel better now, but for a while, I felt pretty bad since I set this whole thing up." And a book won't stop someone from being racist. That's up to your mother if she wants to continue being a racist piece of shit or not. And OP says, I mean, that's true, but I think she wants to learn. The apology book apparently helped. I see you've already had How to Be an Anti-Racist recommended. My other suggestion would be So You Want to Talk About Race by I cannot pronounce that name. That poor girl. I can't imagine how awful it was for her to be sitting there with this total stranger, emoting all over her with, I did no wrong, but your mother. The niece was incredibly kind to give her a second chance. I hope things work out well for the niece. I was really surprised that things went better the second time around. My opinion of OP's mother was so low. I can't think of anything more awkward to have to deal with in an office environment. OP did well to recognize that his discovery effectively prevented him from maintaining his duty to his employers of impartial management. That could easily have ended up being one of the twists in the tale of this story. Prostitutes don't know where clients live or their full name to go looking for them at home, so I doubt the brother was just a client. And the baby had red hair like the two kids of the woman, so she should have suspected that it was his child, particularly since he was getting in mess after mess. I agree. Since the mother had an inkling that her dead son could have been the father, she should have at least asked for a paternity test. I think she was just in survival mode with an awful teenager, no support, and didn't have the emotional or financial capacity to add to the mess. She thought she was protecting her family. Obviously it was a mistake, but making the choice in the first place makes sense if you put yourself in her shoes. And it was decades ago. It's not like she could look the woman up on Facebook when she realized she messed up. I don't know. I feel really bad for the niece here. It sounds like she's been put through it, and I sort of get the vibe she's still being put through it by this family who never helped her when she needed it most. It feels like a lot of the forgiving and moving on is something the niece has to do. I hope that I'm misinterpreting and that she's getting support and positive interaction from this, but she's also really young and being the most mature one here at times. My husband is cheating on me with my school bully. I just can't believe he could fool me. His affair started 6 months ago. I could trace it 6 months back anyway, it could have been longer. There were no signs or indications. No change of behavior, no change in the bedroom. I just found out by accident 3 weeks ago when his phone was on the nightstand. My husband was sleeping with my high school bully. I grew up in a small town, and this woman bullied me severely in middle and high school. After graduation, I did everything to find a job in a bigger city and moved, leaving all the hurtful memories. I worked hard for a year, found an apartment, bought a car, and later started college. That's where I met my husband. We got married 2 years ago. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, he doesn't know yet. I will tell him eventually, don't worry. When I was in college, my bully reached out to me after we bumped into each other in a party. She was new in town and was glad she saw a familiar face. She never acknowledged what she did, and I never confronted her. I didn't want to open old wounds. However, I wasn't going to befriend her, so I just rebuffed any attempt of reconnecting. She still moved in the same crowd as my husband and me. I never told my husband anything about her or our past. I wasn't even sure that he knew her by name. 3 weeks ago, when my husband was in the shower, he got a notification on Messenger. I thought it was odd since he's not been active on Facebook or Messenger in ages. We know each other's codes, so I looked and there was her name and pictures telling him she missed his dick. I scrolled a few messages back, and there was a full conversation. I felt sick, and my eyes went blurry, so I just left the phone back where it was and acted like nothing. Over the next 2 weeks, I looked in his phone whenever I could. I found out that my husband deleted Messenger when he didn't use it, except for the time he forgot. I started doing the same. Whenever he's sleeping, playing games, or out for a run, I took his phone and installed Messenger. I could trace back their relationship 6 months. They've been sleeping together for 4. A lot of graphic description of what they want to do or have done to each other, but also a lot about me. Although it was often one-sided. It's always my bully asking questions and trying to get answers about me, and my husband either reluctantly answering or outright telling her not to talk about me. But they've discussed my sex life, and apparently I'm vanilla. To her constant questions about if he preferred me better, he answered that it's different and he doesn't want to compare. Discussions about me often end in him getting irritated and stop answering for days. I've never cried my whole life combined compared to these last few weeks. I want to leave my husband, but I don't want to tell him why. I don't want to give him or my bully the satisfaction of knowing that they hurt me. I just want to ask for a divorce and just tell him that I wasn't in love with him anymore and that I'm not happy in our marriage. I won't be lying, technically, because he's not the man I loved and I'm not happy in our marriage. I haven't told anyone what I've found out, but I've told my mum that I want to leave my husband and stated the reasons above. She went berserk. This is so out of the blue and moronic, and the first question she asked was whether I was cheating on him or not. This was a preview to what probably everyone else will think and say, but honestly, I would rather live with being the perpetrator than the victim this time. I just can't let that bitch hurt me again, watch me suffer, and enjoy it. I just can't. I know I'm being irrational right now, but please put yourself in my shoes and tell me what you would do in my stead. And now in the comments, don't keep the secrets of a cheater. You need a support system too. People can't properly support you if they don't know how or what you might need. You are not a victim. You are a survivor. You've already made the hard choice to leave and say you deserve better. You are not just taking it. You are fighting back and your strength shows. Don't let these people take the truth too. You don't need to be a martyr for them. Actions have consequences, and they'll get theirs, and you will have a great life for yourself and baby. So you're going to keep quiet and open yourself up to bullying by protecting your husband and his mistress's hide? Seems like they're going to win with your plan. Also, do you want your bully to be your kid's stepmom? Because if you go down this route of letting yourself be painted as the villain, that is a very real possibility. People will back them up, especially if they think you're the one that cheated. Heck, they might even root for those two as they see your bully as the one that came to your husband in his time of need. Think with your head on this. You aren't that little girl that got bullied and couldn't stand up for yourself, so don't act like it now. From one former bullied kid to another, stand up for yourself and control the narrative, and for God's sake, collect evidence. Is there a reason why you don't think it would be good for her to get some comeuppance of everyone in your friend circle knowing that she targeted your husband to get him to cheat on you, and when she tried to get him to tell her she's better than you, he wouldn't even do that? Like the embarrassment of being the affair partner who actively seeks out someone to make them cheat on their spouse, who can't even get the affirmation they want in the affair that the cheating spouse prefers them. I know that doesn't make you feel better, but people in your circle knowing that definitely doesn't make her the victor or mean that she won in hurting you. She lost because you're going to have a baby that you love, and she can't even get the man who ruined his marriage to fuck her to say that he likes her more. Either way, you will get through this, and you are incredibly strong to have not gone nuclear immediately. And OP replies, well, I blame him more for the affair. He's the married one, and supposedly to his true love. If I'm to believe him, I don't. I don't know why I'm not saying anything. I guess I'm not thinking clear. Plus, I know she would enjoy knowing that they hurt me. If she's in it to hurt you, she's going to make sure you know as soon as she can get away with it anyways. And if you stay private about it, they are going to set the whole narrative. It's going to be hot gossip, and you almost certainly don't want their version of events being official, especially not if you're in any kind of small town. These people are duplicitous assholes. They deserve to come out of this looking bad for their choices, and you frankly deserve a little vindication. Plus, it gives you a much stronger place from which to negotiate the terms of the divorce. And fuck it, take that prick to the cleaners. And now, on to the update. I shouldn't have deleted my throwaway before writing an update with what I have decided to do. Thank you all for the support. I have read all of your replies, and I've had them in consideration when making my decision on how to deal with my failed marriage. Here's some points before the update. 1. Many said I needed a lawyer. I don't know about that. We don't have assets more than a joint account for monthly expenses and a joint savings account when both of us can do whatever withdrawals. I have already transferred my contribution to my private account. 2. I'm not trying to protect my husband and his affair partner or their reputation. I just don't want to give them, her, the satisfaction of knowing how much they've hurt me. I have read all of your comments, and the majority think I have the wrong approach. I have decided to follow my gut. 3. About terminating my pregnancy. I'm pro-choice, of course, and I've chosen my baby even before I knew I was pregnant. I can't get rid of it only because I don't want to be with its father anymore. Me and my brothers are children to divorced parents, and we turned out decent enough. About my bully being the stepmom, the chance is slim and not good enough to convince me to get rid of my baby. I already love it more than anything in the world. I have broken the news to my husband that I'm leaving him, and I've already talked to my friends about it, and being unhappy in my marriage seemed good enough a reason for them to support me. One of them offered me her place until I find my own. I got really emotional and hugged her and cried because that meant that I could leave my husband's apartment now. He was shocked when I told him. I don't think he took me seriously at first, but he asked me if he did something wrong. I told him that I'm simply not happy with him, and I think I'm still too young to waste my life in an unhappy marriage. He said he had noticed me being distant this past month, but never would have guessed I was unhappy with him. He begged me to tell him what's wrong because this can't be it. He believed me, however, when my friend came to take me with her. This was Thursday. He has been calling multiple times a day, but I haven't answered. He showed up this morning to my friend's house and begged me to have breakfast with him. I agreed. He looked like he hasn't slept or shaven since I asked for divorce. I told him that I was pregnant and that I'm keeping it, but that he didn't have to be a part of its life if he didn't want to. His phone was on the table, and he got a notification from Messenger, so he had forgotten to delete the app before meeting me. When I saw her name, I told him, "Oh, is that her name? You know, she used to bully me in school back when we both lived in town." He froze. "Oh, haven't I told you about her?" I told him everything she did and how it affected me, how she never apologized about anything. He was silent the whole time and just looked at me. I ended with asking him to be careful with her. I don't think she's changed much, to tell you the truth. He grabbed my arm and just watched my face like he wanted to see if I knew something. My plan is to buy a small apartment because that's all I can afford right now. A 1-bedroom is enough until I have my baby, and it's old enough to need its own room. I can upgrade later when I've saved more. I'm not leaving this city. I've spent my best years here and have the greatest memories. I have my friends around me, and hopefully they'll still be supporting me when the divorce is a fact. I've already filed for divorce, but he's probably going to ask for a thinking period. I'm not in a hurry though, everything will get better. For now, I want to cry, try to get over him and heal and be there for my baby. And now in the comments, quote, he said he had noticed me being distant this past month, but he never would have guessed I was unhappy with him. Really? Never. Despite the fact he was banging another woman for the last 6 months. Quote, he begged me to tell him what's wrong because this can't be it. This was incredibly satisfying to read, despite wanting you to reveal all and blow their affair up. Good luck, OP, your baby is lucky to have such a strong mama. And OP says, trust me, I wanted to hit him and scream in his face. You can't guess why I'm unhappy? But I had to control myself. Proud of you, OP. You are super strong. I know you don't think you need a lawyer, but you could be shooting yourself in the foot. Reputation-wise, I understand you don't care, but you have a baby to think about, and you need to set yourself up with proper alimony, child support, and custody. This woman has been obsessed with you for most of your life. I don't see her going away that easily, especially once she finds out you're pregnant. And OP says, I thought I'll hire a lawyer if there is a need in the future. I haven't ruled that out. Right now, I can't spend money on lawyers. I'm glad you posted an update. After reading your original post, I've been wondering how you decided to go about handling it. Glad you had the opportunity to let him know the history that you have with that woman and the kind of person that he's chosen to mess with, and I wish you the best as you move forward. And OP says, thank you. I'm gonna need all the best wishes. I'm glad you're out of there. It would be nice to follow you as you recover and thrive, so please consider updating again. And OP says, thank you. I'll try to do my best and update. I'm very happy I found this place. I googled about affairs and found Reddit. You handled this with so much dignity in my opinion. Oops, he must have forgot to cover his tracks when he was trying to get you back. The timing with that messenger notification was the perfect opportunity for you to tell him about how awful your bully was and make him sweat about what you really know. And OP says, he probably was talking to her about me leaving him. I don't know why else she would message him at 9 in the morning. I thought about that a lot. Be careful with her. That comment told him she knew. And now he's going to spend the rest of his life knowing he threw away his chance at real happiness just because a bully stroked his ego. And she didn't even make a big deal of it, so he can't be mad at her. Not even a little bit. Well played. My fiancé and I decided to break up, but she couldn't move out due to the lockdown. After about 4 months isolating with her, I've realized I don't want to break up anymore. So my fiancé and I have been dating since college, and as soon as we graduated, I proposed to her. However, we decided to get married only once we were both financially stable and okay with our jobs. 2 years down the road, we've also been living together for that long, we now meet those requirements. However, our love for each other disappeared, or at least this spark that we used to have. We became very busy, her with her graduate education plus job, and me with my work. I admit I've been busy spending way too much time in the office, and once I get home, I use my free time to get ahead with deadlines and stuff. She's also constantly stressed as she's juggling her education and her teaching job. We never had time for each other anymore, but we were still busy enough to even notice that. Then March came and she approached me with a subject, and we had a long talk. It was an emotional one. We've known each other for so long after all, and we were reaching our end after so many years. She was already in the process of booking flights to stay with her parents for a while when the lockdown was announced. She decided not to go home anymore in fear of possibly carrying the virus and infecting her family. I agreed with that decision, and since then, we've been isolating together. We are both working from home now, and she also finished her studies in April. Because of that, we've been having a lot of free time. At first, it felt a bit awkward. I didn't even know how to talk to her anymore. I got used to short and empty small talk with her, but she's always known how to get me out of my shell, so it didn't take too long before we were having full conversations once again. I just found out that she's had a newfound love for playing Sims 4. She showed me the family that she was playing with currently, and I noticed that it was herself and me, plus a dog and a cat whose names were our birth months. Lol. She had been so shy initially, but she doesn't know that I was also feeling flustered then. I think this is the start of me questioning our decision to break up. After that, it was the small things. I also caught her up on how my life has been, like my shitty supervisor, how I haven't been taking care of my health lately, etc. And since then, she started pushing me to work out with her, and she's also been trying to get me into healthier options of food. I also came to find out new things about her in these months, which is surprising considering how we've been together for many years now. These past few months have been really good. I feel like I was brought back to the times when we first met, and I feel like a high schooler with a crush. The thing is, I'm not sure if I can trust my feelings right now. The only person I've had contact with was her, except for my frequent calls with family and friends. And I may be just having an infatuation right now. I also think we're lucky since we are both very free right now, but I keep thinking, what happens after the lockdown ends? Will we go back to being those busy people that have too little time for each other? I also don't know how to approach this with her. She's always been the talker in our relationship, you know? But at the same time, I'm also afraid to talk about it and potentially ruin things for us right now. What if she doesn't feel the same? What if she's just treating me kindly because that's what she is, a genuinely kind person? The only hope that I'm holding on to right now is the fact that she hasn't planned on going back to her family yet, despite domestic travels being allowed in our country now. How do I go on about this? And now in the comments, I think maybe try it while y'all are talking or playing a game or something together. Just say, I don't think I want to break up anymore. And that should get the conversation started. And OP replies, ooh boy. I've honestly tried so many times to try and bring it up. We were playing Sims once, and in my head, I was yelling at myself to ask why she made our family in that game, but I could never get the words out. Instead, I just went silent the whole time while she talked. Sigh. Not to put too fine a point on it, but you not talking to her was a big part of the problem in the first place. You know, a lot of folks who have been in lockdown together are absolutely sick of each other by now. I read that Wuhan had a huge number of divorces filed as soon as their quarantine was lifted. I think it's special that you two have enjoyed this time together and have been able to reconnect. I think it says something that you have not gotten sick of each other and have actually gotten a lot closer and found new ways to appreciate each other. Maybe you can bring it up by starting with an admission of how vulnerable you're feeling about it. Perhaps, I want to talk to you about something, but given what we've been through the past few months, I'm feeling nervous about this conversation. The truth is that being in lockdown with you has made me appreciate you more than ever, and I'm so grateful that we've had this chance to be with each other in a more intentional way than before. I realize that if we can be in lockdown together for months and only get closer, then there is something special about our relationship. I'm still in love with you, and I don't want to break up anymore. You should have a plan for what is next if she says no, but given your perspective on this, it seems like it'll be a good conversation no matter what. And now on to the update. Although I didn't get to reply to any of the comments except for one, I made sure to read all of them in my main account, so I would like to thank everyone for their great advice. Here I am now, excited to tell you what happened in the course of 5 days. So the day after posting, nothing really happened. I spent that day reflecting on what kind of future I see and want with her. I also thought a lot about the past, how we messed it up, how we both got too lost in our jobs, etc. In my original post, I asked if what I'm feeling could be just an infatuation that would go as quickly as I came, but I realized that my feelings for her never really disappeared to begin with. It's like my heart just went in a deep sleep, and I forgot how many feelings I carry for her. I think some of you may know, and have pointed out, that I'm not really good at communicating my feelings. I tend to keep things to myself, and my fiancé is one of the few people who can be patient with that. Some suggested to write a letter instead, or a note, or marry her in Sims. I ended with drafts of sappy letters that I ended up scrapping, and a sad attempt to recreate us in The Sims. But still, I wanted to make an effort to show her what I couldn't say through words. I've heard about her wanting a few DLCs in The Sims in the past, so I had the idea to buy a few for her, as Sims DLCs are pretty expensive, especially in our currency. Surprised her by stealing her laptop for a few hours, and once I gave it back to her, she was elated and so happy. It was really nice seeing her get so excited over it. We played together that whole day and tried to solve the mystery in Strangerville, a game pack in The Sims. It was so fun. The next day, I found her in the kitchen trying to bake something. It was a blueberry cheesecake recipe she saw on YouTube. I basically became her cooking assistant that day, helping her as much as I could, and we ended up with a pretty decent outcome that I bet would have tasted better if I hadn't messed up so much. She still said she had so much fun and loved that cheesecake though. The next day, which is just yesterday, something important happened. We were basically just snuggled up on the couch playing when our Sims just autonomously tried for baby in the bed. It was hilarious and we initially laughed about it, but then we got pretty silent. She then closed her laptop and hugged me tightly then, without saying anything. I think that was my realization that, oh, she feels the same as I do. So I knew I had to speak up. I'm still impressed at myself for managing to talk yesterday without choking up. Basically, opening up the conversation like, "Are you planning to go to your parents soon?" And she said no, she doesn't feel like it yet. I asked her why. She told me she wanted to stay. I told her I wanted her to stay too. We went to sleep that night just huddled together, and even though we didn't really explicitly say it, I think we're now aware of each other's feelings, and it feels like a really huge improvement to me. Earlier, we ate breakfast together. We weren't as chatty as we've been in the last few months, but the silence was comforting. We also watched Knives Out together. We haven't had the conversation yet, but I'm going to bring it up to her tonight. I'm really glad this whole ordeal went much nicer than I expected it would, and I'm relieved I didn't let my doubts get the best of me. Though I still have to get better with how I communicate things, I'm going to learn for her. And OP provides a final update in this comment. Okay, hi. I posted this thinking the same people who saw my last post would respond, and seeing that a few users wanted an update back then, I thought, what the hell? Why not give them a little update right now and leave it at that? Now I have 5 times the audience that I had last time. Right now my fiancé is sleeping next to me. Yes, we had the talk. As soon as I posted this, I logged out and gathered myself so I can tell her what's been on my mind for months. It's not really something so exciting. We basically just sat down together and talked about what went wrong before. I told her the things I said in my last post, and she admitted to worrying about what happens after the lockdown gets fully lifted too. We both acknowledged that we worked too hard to become financially stable so that we can get married. Right now though, all we could do is promise and talk about how we're going to manage our time better, since we have no idea if our country is ever going to return to normal. And then we talked about our feelings. I got to tell her I love her again, for the first time in years probably, and she told me the same. After that, it was back to a lighter conversation. We basically just bonded until she fell asleep. I honestly thought only a handful of people would see my post. I made sure to use Reddit because this isn't really a big platform in our country, and I was sure she wouldn't see this post, but now that there's like 20,000 upvotes as I'm typing this, I think she might stumble upon this post sooner or later. Well then, I know she's going to be whining a lot about this, but she'd be glad to know that a lot of people found our relationship wholesome. Thank you for all the kind comments. I know some people are thinking, why haven't you just talked to her in the first place? But getting some perspective from other people really did help give a push. I think if I left myself alone with the thoughts I was having, things would have gone a lot worse. So I'm really grateful. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the awards I received, since this is just a throwaway account though, but it's still cool. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can, and then log out. Thank you again. Beautiful. So happy for you. Please remember this story later in your life. I've been married for over 10 years. There are times like this in every long-term relationship, when you just aren't feeling the same level of connection and love for each other. It could be because you are just too busy, or because you have some kind of significant trial that gets in the way. You can avoid some of these barriers, but not all of them. You have to agree to stay together though through some lows, knowing that your relationship has the strength to come back. You have to be deliberate about making ways to build your connection and show love for each other. You have to agree to be kind to each other, to always see each other as beautiful human beings, even when you don't feel the same level of connection. If you can do that, you have the capacity to have a beautiful, rewarding, long-term relationship. Wishing you the best. And OP replies, thank you for this. When we broke up, we really thought it was for the best. It was a mutual thing. We talked about this earlier, and she admitted that she felt guilty since she was the one who brought it up, so she thought she was responsible for our breakup. I made sure to tell her that's not the case. I can see now that we both didn't try hard enough. I know other people have had it hard during this quarantine, but I guess we're really lucky that we found a way to turn this bad thing into an eye-opening experience for the both of us. It's like my heart just went into a deep sleep, and I forgot how many feelings I carry for her. This line moved me on such a deep level. I'm glad they found each other again. It definitely seems like they both got caught up in work, which happens to so many couples. A pandemic silver lining. I can't help but wonder if they slept together during lockdown. They both had to be sleeping together, right? Not necessarily. If they made the choice to break up, it might have been too messy to share a bed until they reconnected. Like, why would they? I certainly didn't want to sleep with any of my exes after, regardless of whether we ended on good or bad terms. Boyfriend wants an abortion, I don't. So I, 26 female, just found out that I'm pregnant. Thinking around 6 to 7 weeks, but I haven't gone to the doctor yet. So when I told my boyfriend, 29 male, dating for 1.5 years, that I was pregnant, he was like, oh, this is obviously your choice and I'll support you through it. We went to dinner that night, and I told him that I was 80-20. 80% of me wanted to keep it, and 20% wasn't sure. We talked about what would need to change because we don't live together, and I'm halfway through with graduate school, working on my MSW. We talked about everything, how I would stay in school and focus on finishing and being a new mum that first year before I went back to work, and decided we were going to keep it. The next day, while I was at work, he texted me that we needed to talk. So when I got home, he came over and told me that he changed his mind and we weren't ready and he wants me to get an abortion. I said that I knew that it would be hard, but it's not like we are teenagers. Our priorities would have to change, but it's not like we can't get it together. He said he doesn't want to struggle and he doesn't want to do it now. We started arguing because I said I would think about what he said and make my own decision. He said I was being selfish and I have this fantasy in my head about being a mum. Maybe he's right. He said since I got an abortion when I was 21, it shouldn't be a hard decision now. But those circumstances were completely different. I had no job, I wasn't dating the guy seriously, and he made it clear the only help I would get from him was financial, so it was an easy choice. This feels different. I just don't know what to do now. I made the appointment at Planned Parenthood for 2 weeks, but I keep going back and forth. I don't want to force him into a situation he doesn't want to be in, but I feel like he's pressuring me to make the choice that he wants. I think he's just freaking out, and the initial shock is weighing on him, but he has completely shut down any conversations. I don't know if I want advice or just to vent. This is really a lot, and I don't know where to go from here. And now in the comments, first of all, you need to talk to your boyfriend again, in a few days. He has changed his mind overnight, it could change again. You need to have a detailed discussion about his concerns, and you need to listen. Not just dismiss him with arguments like, we aren't teenagers anymore. It won't lead to a healthy conversation. Let him talk himself hoarse. Think about what he is saying, and then say your piece. See if you can assuage his fears. If you can't, then your boyfriend has made his feelings clear, so you need to decide if you can be single mom. Not everyone wants to be a single mom, but ultimately if you do this, it's likely your relationship will break down. I am a woman, and I hugely believe in men taking responsibility rather than leaving women to cope on their own when it's clear that they have behaved irresponsibly and think that they get to wash their hands of it and leave. However, in this situation, I feel for your boyfriend. You are in a committed relationship and not trying for a baby. This sounds like an accident or contraception failure rather than irresponsible behavior. In that context, it is personally my opinion that you shouldn't ask for child support from your boyfriend. He has no choice whether you keep it or not, but it sounds like he has genuine concerns about the impact this will have on the quality of both your lives. So, if his decision is that he doesn't want the baby, I don't think it's fair for him to endure the negative impacts of having a child regardless of his feelings, i.e., having to struggle financially to pay child support or struggle emotionally and mentally with being a father. If you want to keep the baby, please let him just get on with his life. I would advocate just as strongly if your differences of opinions were reversed. He wouldn't be allowed to force you to have an abortion, so don't force him into fatherhood. You can do this on your own. You just need to decide if you want to. And OP replies, yes, I was on birth control and it failed. We could have been smarter by using condoms. That's a point that he's brought up. He said that if we were trying for a baby, I wouldn't have been on birth control, but we weren't because we are not ready. Someone else says, and please stop saying that he's just freaking out and will change his mind. You sound exactly like you were trying to trap him and are disregarding his reality. You have every right to keep it, but you are being dismissive as hell of his feelings. It's gross. And OP replies, I don't expect him to change his mind. Sure, that would be great, but if I make this decision, it will be because I'm prepared to move forward by myself. If anyone's feelings are being dismissed, it's mine. I explained how difficult emotionally and physically an abortion would be for me, and he said, you'll get over it. I said I believed that we would get ourselves together and be great parents, and instead of talking out the issues, he said that I'm living in a fantasy land of being a mom. So, how is that not dismissing my feelings? Every conversation we've had has been about how he feels about things, not the other way around. I'm not saying that he's not being dismissive. However, he's not here for me to tell him that he sucks for the way that he handled that conversation with you. His behavior is shameful and immature. He's also not asking others' opinions. You are. He's wrong. He is so wrong. But you are misstepping in some huge ways that I think will be detrimental to you, him, and your baby. I am not offering my criticism to be mean, but because I don't want you deluding yourself or putting yourself in an even more unfortunate situation than before. I hope that clears things up. And now onto the update. So I thought on it for a few days and decided that I would be willing to move forward as a single mother if that's what it came to, so I went to my boyfriend and explained that I was not going to get an abortion. I told him if he didn't want to be involved, I would not force him to have a relationship with me or the child, and I would not take him to court. I explained that I want to do this with him, that I love him, and I think he would be an amazing dad. But I wasn't going to force him, and then gave him some time to think about it. After a while, he decided that he was all in with me, and once we began telling my family and he saw how excited and supportive they all were, he really started to get excited. We are in a great place right now, and my dad's girlfriend offered us her townhouse, and we'll be moving there a few months before the baby comes. Smiley face. I don't think anyone really cares about this update, but I thought I'd share just in case. I want to thank everyone for their thoughtful responses and advice. Smiley face. I'll be a mum this summer, and I am so excited. And now in the comments, congrats, and here's an LPT. Privately have enough set aside to make sure that you can move out on a moment's notice by yourself. Make this a priority for you and your child's welfare. This is how security and stability are established. The importance of this type of safety net cannot be overstated. It will prevent anyone from trapping you. Trapping women is easier than leveling up to earn a woman's devotion and respect. And OP says, absolutely. That's why we're going with the townhouse, because we will not have to sign a lease, and the money will be going directly to my dad and his girlfriend. I have about $25,000 saved up, certainly enough for a down payment on a house, but neither of us feel ready enough for the commitment of owning a property together. Our finances are still separate, and we are splitting everything 50-50. I still have my job, and they are aware. I'll be taking maternity leave and still finishing my master's program. I have no desire to marry anytime soon, and we agree on that, and will 100% be keeping my job and future career prospects. I am fortunate to come from a family that is financially comfortable and would help with any future changes. My dad is actually sad to see me go, and had told me plenty of times that I don't have to leave. Even though he loves my boyfriend and they get along great, he just doesn't want me to feel stuck or forget that I have options. I appreciate the advice. Congratulations. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but with the way he came around alarms me. I've got a sneaking suspicion that he might just be saying these things because he doesn't want to lose you. Doesn't it seem weird that he came around so fast after you spoke to him? Basically, you told him you're locked in having this baby, whether he wants to be a part of that or not. Honestly, I'm not trying to put a downer on your announcement, it's just odd to me. And OP replies, I know what you mean. He really was initially excited, and then it started sinking in, and he began to panic. I do believe he is genuinely excited and happy now, and I don't think that has too much to do with me personally. Almost all his friends have children and have been getting super excited, so that's been getting him more excited. He texts my mum updates daily, and has even been texting me cribs, even though we have plenty of time to worry about that. I hope his excitement is genuine, but time will tell. Not to be another downer, but remember that excitement wears off. If his stance was, I don't think we're ready for this, you probably won't have a problem really, but if he stated that he never wanted kids, you might be setting him up to be a resentful parent and husband in the future. I'm happy for you, OP. Congrats on the kid, and I hope you two are very happy. And OP replies, nope, we always talked about having at least 3 kids one day, but we obviously wanted to be more settled. That never changed. We've always wanted to be parents, and I specifically requested he not propose to me and not allow anyone to think that that's the right thing to do, because I don't think it is. If we get married in the future, it will be because we both want it. Our relationship has been great and extremely healthy. This was the first big wrench thrown in, and we had to work through it. He's been happy and super supportive since then, but obviously time will tell. And what would you know, OP has an update number 2. Hello. It's been almost a year since my last update. I don't know if you even remember my post, and I don't know how to link on my profile, so I don't know. I just wanted to give you a short update. We had our son this summer, and he is the happiest, healthiest baby boy, and has added so much love and joy to our lives. After the initial freaking out, we both decided we were committed to raising our son together. We moved in together 3 months before my due date, and things have been great so far. We obviously still have our little arguments and have our new parent stress, exasperated by a lack of sleep, but we have really grown this last year. My boyfriend was able to find a good job, with benefits, and has become the main caretaker for our son. He's off work for the winter season, works outside so he will be returning soon, as I'm out of the house 6 days a week, sad face, working full time, finishing graduate school and an internship on top of that. I really could not have done this without his support and the support of my family, who helps in more ways than I can name. I can't wait until I graduate in May and I can dedicate more time to him and our son. He has taken to fatherhood so naturally and really does the heavy lifting. I'm very grateful. So far, we are doing well, and I hope we can continue that way. And thank you to all the people that typed words of encouragement and a big F you to the people who said, "Can't wait till you're crying because you're a single mom." And now in the comments, "I'm glad it worked out for them. That so easily could have been the end of their relationship. I was fully expecting the line after her telling him she wasn't going to get an abortion to be, 'Then I never saw or heard from him again.'" Agreed. People who seem the happiest and ready can flip under the pressure, and those who are scared of uncertainty can step up and grow into supportive partners and parents. You have to really want it and be prepared to go alone, because you never know. He could get hit by a bus. But we always try our best to allow for healthy communication. Whether you two make it as a couple or not, that's what will help the child going forward. I think he was wrong to pressure her, but accidents happen, and I'm glad she didn't want to force him into parenthood either. Yeah, the only bad thing here was his initial insistence, especially with the underhanded, "You've done it once already" type comment. That said, we all make mistakes and bad decisions and choices of words, and he committed to being there and things are good. Quote, "He said since I got an abortion when I was 21, it shouldn't be a hard decision now." This comment is so horrible. I'm happy if they're happy and create a good environment for their child, but some of his comments were so not okay. Best friend of 12 years chose her boyfriend over me, and now she is begging for forgiveness. My ex-best friend, 21 female, and I, 22 female, knew each other for 12 years. We were literally each other's ride or dies. We were there for every important moment in our lives. I considered her as the sister that I never had. In January 2021, my best friend got into a relationship with a guy. She seemed happy, and she told me that he was the best guy she had ever been with. When I met him, he was cool, and he seemed nice. Fast forward to May 2021, one night I was out with some other friends, and we went to this spot that we would usually hang out at. My best friend wasn't with us because she was working that night. I ended up running into her boyfriend and his friends. My friend group and his group ended up chilling together, and everything was cool. I had only one drink that night because I had to get up early the next morning. However, everyone else had a couple of drinks in them. I ended up leaving early and told them that the Uber I had ordered was on its way. My best friend's boyfriend offered to walk with me because he also had to go out to smoke. We ended up outside, and I proceeded to also have a quick smoke before my ride arrives. We start talking about trivial stuff, and then about my best friend. I told him that it sucked she wasn't able to come out that night. At first he agreed with me, but then he said, "Yeah, but if she was here, we wouldn't be talking right now," which rubbed me the wrong way. I was looking at my phone to see where the Uber was, and pretended that I didn't hear what he said. He repeated what he said, and went on to add that if he wasn't with my friend, he'd be pursuing me. I ended up snapping at him and told him that what he was doing is screwed up. My Uber was pulling up, so I told him to get lost and got inside the car. I ended up texting my friend on my way home and told her that I needed to speak to her urgently and that she should call me when she gets off in the morning. I didn't tell her what it was because I felt like this type of information needs to be told face to face or at least be heard. When the next morning came, she had not called me, but she had seen the text message because the red receipts were on. I called her, and the minute that she picked up, I could tell she was pissed. I asked her how she was doing, and she was being very short with me. After a few awkward moments, I told her that I needed to tell her about something that happened the night before, and she said, "I know." Turns out that her boyfriend had texted her the night before that I had tried to flirt with him. According to him, I was trying to take advantage of him being drunk to flirt with him while we were smoking, and that he rejected my advances. To make it worse, he picked her up that morning from her job and fed her more lies about that night. She ended up cussing me out, and to be honest, I started cussing her out too. I told her she was an idiot for believing any of that, but it's like she wouldn't hear it. Our friendship ended that day, and we did not speak from May 2021 to today, March 2022. She called me from a new number, as I blocked her, and basically said that she was sorry for believing those things, that he had cheated, and that she now realizes how much of a liar he is. She said it doesn't excuse what she did, but she believed him because she loved him and thought he was the one. She was crying during the call, and I could feel her emotions. I'm so conflicted. This is my ex-best friend of 12 years, the person that I practically grew up with. Normally, I would never take someone back, but there is a lot of history between us, and I feel so conflicted. I still love her to this day. Should I try to salvage our friendship and give her another chance? Edit suggested that I add this here. I suspect she caused issues in my other friendships. We shared friends in common, and when all of this happened, they distanced themselves from me, and our friendships turned into acquaintances. This all happened after we stopped being friends, and I never told any of them what had happened, and never asked out of shame. This is a big reason why I'm struggling to make a decision. And now in the comments, forgiveness also doesn't mean that you have to be friends again. If she hadn't found out he cheated, she would still have thought that you were lying. And OP replies, "There's a part of me that wants to forgive, but there is another part that thinks that I would be forgiving her when it's not deserved. The rest of this is basically the edit that I just read." And Noodlefigure responds to that, "You can accept her apology without forgiving her and bring this issue with the mutual friends up to her. Say, I'm glad you finally see who he is, but it still hurts that you crap on your best friend of 12 years for a guy that you only knew for 4 months. You didn't even hear me out. If you hadn't found out that he was cheating, you wouldn't be apologizing. I also suspect that you are the reason our mutual friends distanced themselves from me, which hurts a lot as well. They think I'm someone that I'm not. Have you apologized to them yet? While I accept your apology, I can't be sure you are not still a toxic person. Could you once again think some guy is the one after only 4 months and toss me out like trash like I don't matter? That hurt too much for me to want to risk again. If she takes some steps to show that she's truly remorseful, maybe you could slowly start rebuilding a friendship or keep her at a distance. But you also don't owe her a thing. If you've been happy without her in your life, there is nothing wrong with moving on without her. Whether or not you let her back into your life is completely up to you, but you have to set boundaries and realize that only now is she willing to believe you. Instead of listening to both sides and putting her faith into the person she knew she could trust, she chose to listen and believe him. She feels bad now, but I don't know if she would really change her way of thinking enough to not have this situation happen again. And then it comes to you. Are you willing to be a good, faithful friend and remain the last one to be trusted and believed? And OP replies, "I'll always keep somebody's secret, regardless of whether we have a falling out or not. I'm just afraid by forgiving her, I'm making it seem like I don't have any self-love." Forgiveness and trust aren't the same thing. You can forgive her and decide to let the relationship go. You can also forgive her and decide to rebuild the relationship, and she can work to rebuild trust. Forgiveness is a gift, but trust needs to be earned. And now on to the update. First of all, thank you so much to everyone for the advice and comments. They truly helped when it came to sorting out my thoughts and feelings. I ended up meeting my ex-best friend at a cafe on Friday afternoon. I did not want to go to her place or for her to come to mine. It was extremely awkward and tense. She began to apologize again for what she did and said that she would take it all back. I told her how much she hurt me and how blindsided and betrayed I felt. I told her how upset I was by the fact that she never even met me to share my side of the story. She told me that she had suspicions that her ex wasn't who he said he was months prior to their breakup. She also said that she suspected he may have lied on me, but she wasn't sure. I asked her why she didn't say anything or reach out to me if she had doubts, and she said that once again, she wasn't sure and didn't know what to believe. I asked her why she is sure now that he was lying, and apparently it's because he threw it in her face during the breakup. Apparently they had a big argument, and he told her, "You are so fucking stupid, you let me convince you that your best friend was coming on to me." That kind of annoyed me, and I began to wonder if she would have reached out if he never confirmed her suspicions. I asked her that, and she said that she didn't know. We talked a bit more about the breakup, and then I asked if she had badmouthed me to our friends in common. She confessed that she did tell them that I had tried to hook up with her ex, that she couldn't believe I would betray her, and that I shouldn't be trusted. I told her that her spreading those lies really hurt my friendships, and that people now question my character. I told her that she needs to go tell those people the truth, and she agreed. I ended up telling her, although I appreciate her apologies, I can't forgive her. I told her that I don't hate her or have any bad feelings towards her, but that I can't forgive her. I can't get past the fact that she badmouthed me to people and only reached out to me because she got confirmation from the guy who lied about me. I thought about it, and deep down I know that I couldn't forgive her in the moment. I told her that I do not want her in my life right now, but that it might change. If I do end up wanting a friendship with her, then I'll reach out when and if I feel like I'm ready for that. We both ended up crying, and honestly, this felt worse than any breakup I've ever had. She told me that her mom asked about me, which made me extremely sad, because her mom is like a second mother to me. Not only did I lose my best friend, but I lost a second family. Since that meeting, some of our friends have reached out and said sorry for icing me out. I assumed she must have told them the truth. I haven't responded because I honestly am upset that they picked a side without even asking me what happened. At this point, I really do not want to deal with any of them. That's all. Once again, thanks to everyone for the help, I truly appreciate it so much. And now in the comments, that's really sad. A friendship breakup can be equally as bad. I'm sorry your friend did this to you. And OP replies, it truly feels horrible. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I'm also sorry your friends did this to you. It wasn't just a betrayal by your best friend, but also all of the ones that just iced you out without finding out if what she said was true. Never mind it being that boyfriend, but for them to all do that off one incident, and without even talking to you about it, would upset me as much as what your ex-best friend did, as if the entire time the character you had displayed wasn't worth asking what happened. I gather from the post that you're probably not going to be reaching out anytime soon, if at all, with those former friends as well. Regardless, I think you handled this very empathetically and balanced with respect to your former bestie and the time you did have together. You were willing to meet her to give yourself closure and resolved things in a manner that was what you needed. Kudos to you for standing up for yourself and being willing to realize that as much as you want what you had back then, that it won't be the same and you might never feel that same way again. You gave her the graciousness of an out that many others might not have done. I hope you heal from this and find your way forward. That was a very difficult situation, and 12 years of close friendship gone. But you made the right decision. The betrayal, and not even listening to your side after all those years, is unforgivable in my book. Glad that you left an opening to rekindle things though, if you ever change your mind. Personally, I'm way too forgiving and giving second or many chances, so kudos to you. These were all bad friends. I seriously can't imagine believing something like this about one of my friends without listening to their side. This must have been a very painful experience for OP, but I think she will be better off in the long run without folks who could toss her aside so easily. In defense of the other friends, there's a fine line to toe when it comes to drama like that. If you assume OP's friend is telling the truth, then asking the other person could be seen as sticking your nose in other people's business. Especially since these people are in their early 20s and emotional maturity isn't exactly something people that age are known for. Personally, I don't think OP is wrong to just be done with all of them. Some wounds just never heal. But I don't think the friends are entirely in the wrong for assuming their friend wasn't lying, intentionally or otherwise, especially if they didn't want to be caught up in someone else's drama. My ex-girlfriend is threatening to out me as gay if I don't marry her. So I come from a very religious family. For context on how religious, when I was 14, they caught me kissing my best friend and sent me to a camp that summer to make me straight. It didn't work to make me straight, but it did work to make me repress myself and develop a serious depression/self-hate. Around 6 months ago, I started seeing an actual therapist, not a religious figure, at my girlfriend's behest. It ended up being a good thing. It helped me start to undo all the damage done and come to terms with the fact that I am gay. I am nowhere near ready to be out or tell anyone, but I realized I owed it to my girlfriend so she could move on and not waste any more of her time. I sat down and told her she seemed understanding and supportive until the next day. She came over and told me how she had been thinking and realized the best course of action would be to get married. I told her no and was shocked that she'd even suggest that given we broke up yesterday. She told me we didn't break up and that if we did and weren't getting married, she would have to tell everyone why. She actually pulled out her phone and threatened to text my parents. I begged her not to, and she left with, "I'll give you a couple of days to think about it." I've got an emergency session booked with my therapist, but she can't see me till tomorrow. I'm scared and spinning here with no one to turn to and no idea what to do. Please help me. FML. She sent me food for thought, which was an audio clip of me begging her not to tell them I'm gay. And now in the comments, I would preempt the outing with a lie. Normally wouldn't recommend it, but this is about your safety. Ring your parents and say you're so upset because you confided in her about camp, and then she started trying to make you do all sorts under the threat of outing you. She'll react enough for it to be plausible. Make a plan and act before she does. If she's going to play dirty, then the only way to save yourself is to do the same, I'm afraid. Sit down your parents before she talks to them, explain other relationship issues that you've had with her, and that you broke up with her. Tell them ahead of time that she's going to lie about you being gay. Then I'd recommend bringing a female friend along and say that she's your girlfriend. Say that you and your ex had been broken up for a bit now because you had caught feelings for someone else and because your ex was controlling. Explain that she's in denial that your relationship has already ended a while ago and that she's doing this out of jealousy. If you have documentation of her asking to marry you, show that as proof that she's gone off the rocker. Explain that she's doing this all as a last-ditch attempt to keep you. Stay calm, and whatever you do, don't marry her. You are both in your early 20s. Marriage is a serious thing. She's blackmailing you. How could you ever marry and love someone who is so cruel? This isn't you. You are not the problem here. I'm not gay, but I have many friends who are, and have seen them come out and supported them. And now onto the update. So it's been a hell of a couple days since my post. Later that day, my older brother came over, which was really good, because I was thinking about doing something very stupid. He ended up paving the way for me to tell him the truth about everything, and his response was support. He shared things I didn't know, including that one of his closest friends is gay, and introduced him to his wife because he was dating her brother. He credits knowing them for what opened his mind up, and shared he started going to an open affirming church a couple years ago. We talked, and once everything was on the table, he told me to pack some stuff to come and stay with him. He didn't want to leave me alone given everything I shared, and I didn't want to be alone either. Plus, he agreed that if things went south, that it would be unlikely our parents would allow me to live there, and getting evicted wouldn't look good. He rounds up a couple friends the next day to go with us and get my stuff. When we got there, we found our parents, other siblings, my ex, and my best friend waiting with a holy intervention. It felt like it lasted forever. The arguing, the judgment, just all of it. I almost didn't get my stuff and honestly, briefly thought that I'd get hit. But thanks to my brother and his friends, I got my stuff without it getting physical. This is speculation on my part, but based on things said, I think my ex, from the day my parents introduced us, was working with them. We left, both disowned by our family, and I lost all but one of my friends. They haven't all cut me off, but one of them has been pushing me to get help to fix my problem. My brother thinks I should block them, and I probably should. I don't know. Sorry I don't have a cheery update. I'm lucky I still have my brother and sister-in-law, but it hurts losing everyone else. TLDR, got disowned and lost everything except one friend and my brother/his wife. So yep, my life is destroyed. And now in the comments, your life isn't destroyed because you are still here. And I know that might not seem like much, but OP, it is everything. Because the rest, you can rebuild. Block the unsupportive people. You have your brother and sister-in-law, you have your life. There is plenty of people in this world that will love you as you are. Take the time to find those people, focus on yourself, and if possible, please start therapy. And OP responds, thanks, and I am in therapy. If it weren't for that, I'd never have been able to admit that I'm gay. I'm glad. Trust me, I've seen people create the greatest found families that I've been lucky to be a part of. And we aren't related, but that are part of my family. As you grow, the need for biologically related people is not as high. You'll realize that the right people will stick around. The best revenge is living well. It doesn't seem like it now, but every day you wake up and try again is a big F you to those so-called Christians. Block and disregard anyone that doesn't support you. Do not endanger your own mental health to assuage any misplaced guilt that you may feel. You owe those who now see you as someone who must change from their true self precisely nothing. That is what they deserve from you, and the only thing you should give them. Nothing. It breaks my heart to know that you are dealing with this. I feel like as a good parent, I will accept my children for who they are. If I could adopt all of the children that were disowned for stupid things like this, I would. I wish that people would understand that being gay is not a choice, but it's being true to who you are. Please consider yourself hugged, virtually. Situations like this are one of the reasons that I haven't been a Christian for many years now. Poor OP. To get hurt by his parents and the girl he was dating taking joy in tormenting him. Losing friends hurts, but at the same time, he won't have to deal with them later. Yeah, I legit read it as a positive update. Growing up in a very culty anti-LGBTQ religion, I've seen crap like this hundreds of times. He is now out to someone he trusts, he has a support group, and the toxic people in his life took themselves out. He has a solid foundation on which to regrow who he is and find love and real friends and chosen family. I think and hope he will be okay. Also, what the fuck was her plan? Marry a gay man and never be happy again and make someone else miserable? Another commenter speculates that the ex-girlfriend and OP's parents were in cahoots the whole time, trying to help OP straighten out. She could also be a repressed lesbian, so a loveless and sexless marriage sounds like a good deal. Or maybe OP's family is well off and she's just a garden variety gold digger or other domestic abuser. Me and my wife's marriage has been horrible for the past year. My wife's sister recently moved in, and we have a lot of fun together. Made me realize how unhappy I am in my marriage, and I want to divorce. My wife and I have been married for 3 years. Our marriage has been horrible for me in the last year. My wife is always angry, negative, lazy, and blames everything that goes slightly wrong in her life on somebody else except herself. I'm a very outgoing and motivated person, and I like to go out a lot. My wife is less outgoing, but used to always try to make an effort to go out together and have fun. For the past year, she hasn't done anything in our marriage. She's addicted to her phone and TikTok and barely pays attention when I'm talking or we are doing something. We barely go out anymore, and if we do, she always finds something to get angry at, like a waiter taking a little too long. When we are out eating, she is on her phone watching TikToks and barely communicating with me. She always wakes up moody and angry and destroys the whole vibe. She curses in every other sentence she says, and huffs and puffs if she has to do something that normal grown adults have to. We have also not been intimate for the past 6 months, and it doesn't look like something is going to change. I always tell her how much I appreciate her, and that I love her, and always try to do things together. But she always shuts me down when I suggest doing something because she's tired, but then proceeds to watch Netflix until 2 a.m. She never shows any affection or appreciation towards me. For the past year, I have tried to communicate to her that something needs to change in our marriage, but she just gets angry and avoids the conversation instead of talking. It has gotten to the point that I have stopped caring about our marriage and have just been going along and focusing on my personal life and goals. My wife's sister, Elle, has recently gotten out of a long-term relationship and has moved in with us temporarily. Elle is the complete opposite of my wife. She is happy, vibrant, talks, and is just fun to be around. Ever since she moved in, we've been spending a lot of time together because my wife doesn't do anything else other than watch Netflix and talking to her friends on FaceTime when she's home. On the rare occasion she is not doing one of these things, she is out with her friends. Elle is a very active person, so we do a lot of activities together. She joins me when I go to the park to get some fresh air, she helps me cook when I'm preparing dinner, and even works out with me in my home gym. I always try to get my wife to tag along with us, but she never does. Spending all this time with Elle has totally changed my mood. Being around a person that is positive and doesn't complain about every single thing in their life is so refreshing and fun. But don't get the wrong idea. We have never done anything inappropriate, we have just become really good friends that lift each other up. The past couple of months since Elle have moved in have made me realize how unhappy I am in my marriage. Having someone around you that is constantly complaining, cursing, and angry drains every bit of energy that you have. It's depressing, and that's not how I want my life to be. I want to be with someone positive, who shows that they care about me and wants to have new experiences together with me. I have tried so hard for the past year to make my marriage work with my wife, but I just get shut down. I don't feel loved anymore and appreciated, and I don't want to be in this position anymore. I want to divorce so I can move on with my life and find someone who actually loves and cares for me. I've officially checked out of my marriage and I don't want to turn back anymore. I'm just not completely sure how I should go about the situation now. I know for a fact that I'm going to get trashed by friends and her family for leaving my wife, and that I'm somehow going to come out as the bad guy. I want this process to be as clean as possible, but I'm not sure how. And now in the comments, other people aren't living your life. Don't concern yourself with what they think or do. And accept it. It will probably get messy. Life does. You won't just shake hands and part ways. There will be tears and heartache. Don't pursue her sister even after your divorce. Just move on. And OP replies, I guess I'm going to have to prepare myself for a rough time and be prepared to lose some friends. And don't forget the advice about not pursuing the sister. Never, ever, ever. Oh, he's going to. But he said in another comment he won't. Right. Get divorced, but don't pursue the sister. That's a disaster waiting to happen. OP says, I don't want to pursue the sister, I just want to get out of my marriage as clean as possible. Contact a divorce lawyer. Don't make any promises or move out or anything before you talk to someone. There is never a clean way to divorce someone who is already angry and bitter. The best you can do is to make sure that you're protecting yourself legally and try to remain calm if and when she freaks out. Trust me, divorce is never clean. However, since you don't have children, it can be on the lesser side of horrible. The first thing you need to do is stop being concerned about what others may or may not say or do. This isn't about them, and you need to be prepared to tell them that this is between you and your wife, and you would appreciate it if they stayed out of it. Then, just keep your mouth shut. Next is really the most important thing. Get a very, very good divorce lawyer and do exactly what they tell you to do. It's their job to advise you according to your particular circumstance and the laws where you reside. Although you are unhappy and want to divorce, you do not seem to be vengeful. So the best thing to do is to be as fair as possible and not talk trash about your soon-to-be ex. I divorced my first husband, and I found it to be much easier for me, because I wanted out, than for him because he didn't. Just keep calm and be polite. It will serve you very well. And good luck on your divorce and best wishes for your new life. Divorce can really set you free to live the life you want. The way she's behaving may be indications of her resorting to escapism due to diminishing mental well-being. Perhaps you and her sister can compose an action plan to approach her gently so she can seek professional help. And remember, your feelings are completely valid. When someone you love experiences mental health issues, it usually drags you down too. So please consider taking up individual therapy too, and perhaps couples therapy sometime. She sounds totally depressed. All of those aversion behaviors point to something internal that is making her not allow herself to feel joy. Seriously sounds like she has some major self-worth issues and is trying to escape her reality for some reason. Get her to counseling. Tell her how you feel. Tell her that you want her to feel loved and that she has a part to play with that. If she flat out refuses any of that, then your choice becomes if you want to live a life that makes you happy or endure one that is what you know. Sorry you're going through this. Keep in mind people bury traumas deep, and she may be reliving some trauma that made her shut down. It is the only thing that makes sense, unless she is just a miserable person for chemical imbalance reasons. Good luck, dude. Don't bail on the marriage just yet, but start making a plan to have your finances in order if you do need to leave. And OP replies, quote, if she flat out refuses any of that. That's what she has been doing for the past year. And now on to the update. So my first post got a lot of traction. I appreciate all the supportive messages I've gotten, and especially all the people sharing their own experience. You definitely helped me to get some perspective in the matter. The past couple of days, I've been able to clear my head about my marriage. I realized that this is not how I want to spend the rest of my life. I want to be with someone who cares about me and loves me. She clearly doesn't. I want to be with someone who respects me enough to put her phone down when we're having dinner and I'm trying to talk to her and isn't ignoring me to watch TikToks. I am done trying and getting nothing in return. I am done giving it my all and getting nothing back. I have been trying to communicate and make things better for a whole year and have been completely neglected. I still have love for my wife, but I am not in love with her anymore. I want to move on with my life and find the right one for me and lead a happy life. I have also been in contact with my divorce attorney and am getting the process started. I turned 32 2 days ago and my wife didn't even acknowledge my existence. Instead, she went out with her friends that night. Even her sister remembered my birthday and got me a present. She was even shocked that my wife ignored my birthday like this. We ended up having dinner together at a restaurant, and she even paid for the both of us. I didn't even feel the need to mention my birthday to my wife because I knew that at this point, she didn't really care. This really made me lock my decision. I don't care if she's depressed or not. If she doesn't even care enough about me to remember and acknowledge my birthday, and rather goes out with her friends, I don't want to be with her. People keep saying that we should go to counseling and therapy to patch things out, but for the past year, I have been trying to get my wife to go to couples therapy with me, but she just refuses and gets angry with me as always. I have tried everything I could have thought of to make my marriage work, but she pretty much just shuts everything down that I try. I have tried so hard to make my marriage work and put in so much effort, but now I have had enough of it. A lot of people tried to diagnose my wife with depression in my previous post, but I'm not a medical professional, so I can only talk from my perspective. To me, it seemed like she was living her own life without me, and that she would get frustrated with everything that I got involved in. I'm not going to say if she has or doesn't have depression, that's not for me to determine. Whether she has it or not, I don't find that a valid excuse to treat me that way that she has for the past year. She didn't even have the respect to communicate and talk to me like a decent human being, instead of being on her phone and ignoring me. If she has depression, she'll figure that out on her own without me. A lot of people were also suggesting that I just want a divorce to get with her sister. That's not true. I want a divorce so I can get myself out of this miserable marriage and so I can move on with my life. I have no plan on pursuing her sister. I'm getting this divorce for my own well-being. Elle said that she finds the divorce unfortunate, but that she supports my decision. She even suggested that we stay friends after because we get along great. When I told her that I was divorcing her, some little bit in me hoped that she would realize what has been happening in the past year and try to apologize and make things good again or something. Instead, she started getting angry with me and started yelling at me. As always, instead of taking responsibility, she started blaming me. At this point, I stopped caring and I didn't respond to all her yelling. I told her that my decision was final. I also suggested her to see a medical professional to figure out her possible depression, but what she does with that advice is really none of my concern. Elle knew something was up and tried to talk with my wife about what was going on, but pretty much got dismissed and yelled at for getting her nose in our business. For now, I'll be sleeping on the couch and living my own life. Elle informed me that she is moving out and was able to find a place, so I'll be taking the guest bedroom when she gets out. I'm in the middle of trying to figure things out with my lawyer, and hopefully we will be able to move fast in this divorce. But probably not. I'm mentally preparing myself for everything that will happen to me socially, and I accept that. I just want this to be over so I can move on with my life. And now in the comments, it takes two to tango. Be at peace knowing you did everything you could. You'll find someone better someday. And OP says, thanks. In fact, you've already found someone better. Yourself. You've got your own back, which is a massive thing and more than many people achieve. Be proud of that. Good for you. Your wife sounds absolutely horrible. Who forgets their spouse's birthday after only a few years of marriage? That's awful. So sorry you're dealing with this, but you are still relatively young and will find someone who makes you happy and who fully appreciates you. Not some negative person who wears you down and hates the world. You will find an empowered woman who sees you and values your worth and build a strong bond that will last a lifetime. Good luck and take care of you now. Do not worry about her. This is your time, buddy. And OP says, thanks for the support. Yeah, it sucks for now, but it will get better, although it may get worse before it gets better. Be with somebody who actually wants to be with you. That was basically the reason I called it quits on my ex. She wanted to take a break after 15 years of marriage so she could feel out some new relationship with some new guy, and wanted to keep me on standby. No? You either choose to be with me or walk away. Since she couldn't decide, I walked away. Best decision of my life. The main difference is, I thought we were okay, but she never thought so. She never said anything. She basically faked being happy for our whole marriage. So to her surprise, yes, she was actually surprised, I asked for the divorce. I also realized I pretty much spent the whole relationship trying to be a good hubby in order to earn some love from her. But it was always just an arm reach away. Any day now. Yeah. That day never came. So after I moved on, I started dating someone who really showed me she cared for me and loved me. It's been 7 years and it's been great. It's exactly what has been missing in my previous marriage. And OP says, thanks for sharing your story, and it's great that you have found someone who really cares about you. OP, do not be surprised at all when your wife suddenly announces that she has a new boyfriend. All of her actions towards you points to her having found someone else. The way she treats you, the way she apportions blame, the dead bedroom, and the lack of respect towards you. All of it are indicators of an affair. Good luck with the divorce, and I hope you can just amicably walk away into a better life. And OP says, at this point, I don't care what she might be doing behind my back. I just want to get this over with as quick and as clean as possible. I didn't think you would, but if it was happening, it may make things progress very quickly. And also, there are many, many posters on this sub who will do their utmost to find fault with you and excuse your wife's actions. Don't listen to them. What it comes down to is that a relationship requires both parties to put in effort. One side cannot do all the work. It doesn't matter if your wife has depression or any other mental illness, she is an adult that has responsibilities to you, your relationship, and herself. And it's on her to get the help that she needs. For your upcoming divorce, I would expect it to get extremely nasty. The easiest, least effort option is for your wife to put all the blame on you, as, introspection and self-evaluation take effort after all. Make sure to protect your assets and vital documents, change passwords, and take all advice given by your lawyer to heart. And OP replies, thanks for your support. I'm closely working with my attorney to make sure that I get out of this marriage as cleanly as possible. Contrast is sometimes the best way to realize what's going on in your own situation. So glad OP realized something is wrong and then took multiple actions to change it. That's hard to do. It can be so hard to leave those situations too, because even though you feel something is deeply wrong, you also feel that logically, you can't expect them to meet a need that you can't communicate to them. For example, you know it annoys you that they're always on their phone, but them putting their phone down doesn't fix the problem, because the problem is actually that they completely ignore everything you say, talk over you, and talk down to you. So the empathetic side of you feels guilty and feels like leaving would be unfair. I've been in that situation twice before, and both times I distinctly remember when I finally realized what the problem was. I remember feeling such a huge sense of relief because I finally understood that I wasn't being unreasonable by expecting or non-communicated needs to be met. I was just expecting them to treat me like an equal, and like spending time with me wasn't a chore that they were forced to do. I'm so glad OP realized what the problem is and got out before they brought kids into that mess. Well done to him for not transferring his emotional needs onto the sister and actually respecting her as a friend. My boyfriend drugged me with Benadryl because we got into an argument before our road trip and he wanted me to sleep the whole time. So on Monday, we decided to make the 8-ish hour drive back to our home state and quarantine there instead for a few months. Right before leaving, we got into a big fight because I wanted to stay at my mother's house for a while. He doesn't want me to, among other things I won't get into. Well, before leaving, we decided to eat dinner so we didn't have to stop anywhere. Fast forward to our drive, and not long after hitting the road, I passed out. I don't even really remember falling asleep. I woke up one time for a while, drank some Gatorade which he gave me, and then I fell asleep again. I thought this was extremely weird because I wasn't tired hardly at all, and we didn't even leave super early. I kept commenting on how weird it was that I was tired the whole drive and slept 90% of it. Yesterday, the tension eased a bit, and he made the offhanded comment that he wishes he could drug me more when I act out and argue with him. I asked what he was talking about, and he proceeds to tell me that he put Benadryl in my drink and that's why I slept. So he didn't have to deal with me. He literally said this as though it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm still reeling from the conversation and am completely floored. I don't know if I'm overreacting or not, but something tells me I'm not, and it's extremely screwed up to put medicine in drinks. I don't know what to do. And now in the comments, listen, leave now. As a woman who has been there and didn't leave when I should have, leave. Second, you can get evidence later. You have a phone. He's bound to try to talk to you. Get him to admit it later via a text or something, but proof is not, or should not be, your number one concern right now. Your safety is the most important thing. Can your mum come get you? Can you get away from him to a public place with people and wait for her or a friend to pick you up? I've been there too. My ex-husband started fixing me a cocktail after work every night to help me unwind. I'm not a big drinker. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year, so I wasn't that interested in them. He would press for me to finish the drink. I didn't understand. Then I noticed stuff floating on top and residue in the bottom. I asked about it, and he would say, "Oh, must be the ice maker needs to be cleaned." I found out he was crushing Ambien and other sleeping pills and adding it to my drinks. And yes, that made me more compliant in all the ways that he wanted. I figured it out. Didn't try to get proof or call the police. I just got out. I often regret that I didn't try to document it and try to press charges, but at least I got out alive. Please don't stay with this man. Leave him. That is a very big problem. Now he knows how to keep you at bay. He may exploit it for his gain. Seriously, you need to go now. Drugging someone is wrong, and he could have seriously harmed you. This dude needs to be dumped ASAP, and you need to talk to a doctor and possibly police. You are underreacting if you were still with him. Yeah, this is absolutely terrifying behavior. I noticed he was also trying to get you away from your mum's house, trying to keep you away from a support network maybe? Please get out as quickly and as safely as you can. A guy who thinks this kind of behavior is no big deal sounds really unpredictable. Don't expect him to behave rationally. Leaving out everything else they argued about made me think that OP knows that he is abusive, but I'm guessing she hasn't really grasped the magnitude of the whole situation. OP, please get out surreptitiously. Don't give him any warning. Don't worry about taking anything with you. Your life is the most important thing you can take. Do whatever it takes. And yeah, he also made sure to tell her afterwards because he's trying to normalize it, and he's testing the waters to see how much he can get away with. He could just as easily have kept his mouth shut, and she would have never have suspected anything. But he wanted her to know. He wants her to fear acting out the next time because now she knows that he won't stop at anything to control her. This is absolutely only the beginning if she stays. And OP replies, "The problem is we drove his car. My mum's house is an additional hour away. I'm not sure what evidence I have to prove it, and he has a huge upper hand right now. I lost my job due to COVID, which he said was completely fine, and that he didn't want me to find some random job or part-time while this was happening, and he wanted to take care of everything. He owns the house, he is now paying all the bills, and every time I do something completely reasonable that he doesn't like wanting to get a job during this pandemic until I reinstate my career, or simply that I want to stay at my mum's house for a while, he threatens me with phone cutoff, / locked out of house, etc. And now on to the update. Holy crap, y'all. I haven't been on Reddit since I posted my original here, and I did not expect this. I had to make an extra account with similar name to post because of the 48-hour thing, but I know a lot of people were genuinely worried about me, so I wanted to go ahead and post an update. Thank you guys so much. I can't even believe the support and response that I got. I ended up calling my brother and telling him about it and asking him how I should handle it, and he got into his car to come get me before I even finished telling him what had happened. Him freaking out more than anything else made me realize that I wasn't overreacting. I didn't tell my boyfriend I was leaving until my brother was parked on the street, and I just walked out with a few things. So now I'm in a messy breakup situation where he's already tried to come by my mum's house, even though I told him I didn't want to see him and that I'd get my stuff eventually, both from his parents' house where he's currently at and his actual house. Things are going to be weird to figure out, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm totally okay. Thank you. I can't reply to everyone who reached out and messaged, so I hope you guys see this and know I appreciate it. And now in the comments, Christ on a bike. The dude is so okay with drugging his significant other that he just casually tells her he did it and wishes he could do it more often. That's a stone-cold sociopath right there. Yeah, when she acts out, like he's dealing with a child. A controlling partner is always bad, but this is the scarier side. Good thing she got out when she did. OP should definitely try to remember if there were other times when she slept without being tired. This might not be the first time that he did it. And from the context, it seemed to be the first time, but for the same context, it also seemed like this wasn't going to be the last. Thankfully, she's safe now. When this kind of thing happens, your family and community are so important. My sibling was in an abusive marriage and recently left. A massive part of her success in leaving was the support of her siblings and a few friends. We tell her on a regular basis that she did the right thing and did not overreact. He's constantly trying to make her think he did nothing wrong and trying to shake her resolve. Just now, I had to pause writing this response because she called me asking for help working up her anger to properly respond to his assholery. If you know someone in this situation, help confirm they are doing the right thing. It means so much. This is a classic example of, what would you tell your friend or significant other or sister if they came to you with this? You get in your car and you get them out of a dangerous situation ASAP. I'm so glad you followed your gut, OP, both posting here and calling someone you trusted. I'd encourage calling the non-emergency police line, if not to press charges, then at least to ensure your safety in obtaining your belongings. He deserves severe consequences for his reprehensible actions. He thought this was fine. It's not hard to imagine him escalating and drugging a partner to justify other desires. I'm so glad you were safe. Best of luck moving forward. And also, OP, many people here are saying to have a police escort when you get your things, but whether or not that is feasible very much depends on where you live. My severely abusive dad disowned me in April, and even though my mum and I were concerned about a potential murder-suicide, the police refused to supervise for more than 30 minutes. The police aren't always on your side, and are in fact notoriously bad at handling intimate partner abuse. I don't mean for this comment to suggest that you shouldn't try to contact the police. You absolutely should. Just don't expect anything spectacular. My girlfriend is mad that I compared massages to oral sex. My girlfriend, 29 female, moved in with me, 26 male, a few months ago. We've been together for 3 years. Shortly after she moved in, she had a rough day at work and asked for a massage, so I gave her one. No biggie, lasted like 2 hours. Couple days later, she asked for another, and I obliged. Ever since then, it's become this 3 to 4 times a week thing where she just expects me to give her a 1 to 2 hour massage. No talking, whatever music or show she wants on, and I admittedly have a short attention span and generally don't like giving massages. I don't mind doing it once in a while, but this several times a week, every week thing is driving me up the wall. I get tired of standing or kneeling, and my hands always get sore. I offered to pay for her to go to a spa or a massage therapist weekly, and she said no. She doesn't want someone else touching her, and that it's us spending time together. I've tried telling her various ways that us spending time together should be mostly us doing things that we like together, or our own thing in the same room. If I tell her no to a massage, she'll start sitting in front of me, getting in my way, whining, laying in front of me, putting my hands on her. She never used to do this, not the whole time we've been dating or when we'd stay at each other's places. When I point that out, she says that's just what couples do when they live together. It helps her relax. Last week, she asked again, and I told her no. She got upset and kinda lost it, and I asked her if she would give me a 2-hour-long BJ after I've had a rough day at work to relax me. She got really mad and said no, that's ridiculous. She gets no benefit from that, and I know she doesn't like doing those. I know she doesn't, and I've never asked her since she's told me. But I told her that my example request was no different than her constantly demanding 2-hour massages from me when I get no benefit, no compromise, and I can't even talk while giving one. There are other things I'd like to be doing with my time. She's still mad. I've tried every angle that I could think of to approach this issue since it started, but she doesn't listen to anything. I could really use some outside perspective here. Edit to add, people suggesting that I ask her for a massage to prove the point. Been there, done that. I got 5 minutes of an open-palmed rub over the back before she stopped because her hand hurt. So I asked her to imagine what my hand feels like after an hour or two after working with them most of the day. She says that it's different because she likes massages, whereas I'm not fond of getting them. And now in the comments, 2 hours? She's taken the piss. OP replies, it's become a whole damn ritual. After the first couple, she got oils and aromatherapy candles, crap like that. I didn't know it was possible or feasible to rub a hand for 15 damn minutes. This might be a harsh truth, but we teach people how to treat us by the boundaries we do and do not hold. You've taught her to expect you to cater to her needs. You even go above and beyond, and you don't complain. Why wouldn't she keep asking to be treated like that? But you're giving her multiple massages a week, and you can't even talk to her or pick the music. Are you sure you don't have a side hustle as an overworked personal massage therapist? Only your only client is kinda awful and demanding and doesn't pay you. You could just say no. No is a complete sentence. You don't want to. See if she's even curious as to why you don't want to, or if she just makes it about herself. Does she care that you've had a long day and are too tired to give her a massage and would probably benefit from one yourself, or is she more concerned about herself and annoyed that she doesn't get a free massage today? I feel you both have responsibility here. You need to stick up for yourself and say no when it's a no, as well as ask for what you want. And she has a responsibility to care about your emotions and wants and reciprocate in ways that you want. And OP replies to that, I have told her no and walked away when doing so. After that, I go do what I want. Sit to play a game, paint models, and she'll come in and sit in my lap to get in the way. Get in the way when I'm making dinner, lay across my lap, go to bed and start moving my hand on her back and arms, and when that doesn't work, it's the silent treatment. That's the point I cave because I don't have the energy to put up with that. I have told her why I don't always want to do it, and never would have moved her in if it was going to be like this. Oh wow, that's not how respectable adults behave. How have you put up with this so far? What an entitled brat. And I think it's really important to point out that if a man physically imposes himself upon his girlfriend when he doesn't get his way, it'd be immediately seen as abusive, because it is. But there is a double standard at play here, where she is not seen as physically predatory when she is for repeatedly violating your bodily autonomy and your spoken boundaries for her own sensory enjoyment. Gross. And OP responds, "It has been almost 4 months. I had hoped that it would stop after being told no and adjusting to living together, not doubling down and other things I'm realizing after taking time to think. So, yeah, she's getting an unofficial eviction notice." Coercion isn't okay. I don't know if it would help to put it in those terms or not. Get off me, stop coercing me to give you a massage, I said no, I'm not going to, move out of my way. Some things are worth drawing a line in the sand. You have the right to say no. Unfortunately, a lot of people become really shitty after their partner moves in and can't break up as easily. It is intentional abuse. Is she like this about anything else? And OP replies, "She didn't used to be, but ever since posting and getting the feedback, I have been taking the time to really sit and reflect on changes since she has moved in. I stopped going down on her prior because it wasn't reciprocated. She said that was fair, but since moving in, she started asking for it once or twice. It's popping up more in our days to cook dinner, complain I don't use X spice or season enough, and I tell her she could always add more to her plate and bowl. I can't take it away. Her days to cook, her crap is overpowering. Realizing she's complaining some of the things I've always done in my house that she is now complaining about and once done her way. All stuff that started after she moved in. Feel like I got bait and switched. So just gonna throw her back in the pond." And now, onto the update. First, thanks to everyone for their input and advice. It's been a trip since I posted, and I've just been enjoying games, Reddit, and some new hobbies since then. I read as many of the comments and messages as I could, and took a day or two to collect how I was going to approach her. After doing some serious reflecting and thinking, I realized that things were going in directions I really didn't like. Beyond the massage requests and staying mad for more than a week lol, I had asked her for a massage before, and she would go for all of 5 minutes before stopping and saying her hands hurt, she was bored, and it was half-assed anyway. Cooking was suddenly an issue where it wasn't in the past. She started to over-season and then complained that I don't eat her cooking as much as I used to, while complaining that I didn't season and salt enough when I cook, though I point out she could always add whatever she needed or wanted. I stopped giving her oral at the beginning of the relationship. I could live with no blowjobs, but my issue had been that she wants me to do extensive foreplay, sex her, fingers, toys, and still give her oral while only willing to give sex and handjobs. She'd be fine with this when we were dating, but once moved in, she started pushing for me to go down on her again without wanting to budge on what she would give. We'd always clean up after ourselves and help each other clean when staying at each other's places. After moving in, she started insisting that we do all the cleaning her way, and she'd start making comments if I didn't do it her way. As far as I'm concerned, so long as it gets done and the house isn't a pig pen, that's all that matters. At the same time, she had no interest in helping with yard work or work around the house, so I've been putting in more towards the housework and upkeep than she was. Pouted that I stopped making her tea nightly when she no longer could be bothered to bring me back a drink when she already got up to get something from the kitchen. She just tells me to get it myself. She rearranged all the furniture without asking me for my input, then complained that she had to do it all herself while I was at work. Well, duh. She decided to do it all of a sudden when I was at work and expected me to be thrilled. I had a gaming room set up, and before she moved in, I moved all of my stuff to one side of the room so she could have her own hobby and workspace as well. Instead, she started wanting to redecorate the entire room her way and spread everything out. Basically, she wasn't being the fair and reasonable woman that I had been dating for 3 years. I felt like I had been lied to. I told her I wanted to talk about things, and explained I used the original example I had because it was the only physically intimate example that I had used that she could understand. I understood and respected her for not wanting to give blowjobs, so I had expected her to be able to understand where I was coming from. I was doing something laborious, time-consuming, and no benefit to me for her comfort and pleasure out of a place of love and wanting to care for her, expected to have that energy returned in kind in some form, and that her behavior since moving in was anything but. She doubled down that this is just what couples do when they live together, and I should be doing what I can to make sure she is comfortable and happy. I told her I did want her comfortable and happy, but not solely at the expense of my own. Either we compromise or it's the breaks. She thought there wasn't anything to compromise and that her expectations were fair and I just needed to do some growing. Maybe I do, but I ended it with her and told her she had 30 days to get out of my house. I didn't back down after that and didn't engage in her attempts at arguments or sleeping together. Even offered to blow me, but said no and told her she could sleep in the guest room until she moved out. Holy fucking crap. The next day, she left with her sister who had a go at me. Ignored her, stayed quiet, and just let them leave. Got a call from her father later that I wasn't the stand-up guy he thought. I was supposed to do anything I could to make her happy. Guys are supposed to put their wives' happiness first, and if that meant making tea, giving massages, not asking her to help with the lawn, doing extra chores after work so she could relax, that is what I was supposed to do. He lets his wife do whatever she wants with the house and caters to her after they are both home from work. That is what makes a happy life. Well, cool for them. That's not the relationship I want. Then, he hit me with he would be seeking legal action for kicking his daughter out of her house. I was a bit dumbstruck and asked him what the hell he meant. It's my house. Apparently, she told them that I put her name on the deed when she moved in, and she's been paying towards it. I pretty much laughed in his face and told him she lied. My grandparents co-signed this house for me, and I make payments to them each month. She had no rent to pay. I put some of the utilities in her name so she could keep building her credit, but that was about it. We split those expenses. So now I'm just dealing with the fallout from her family and mutual friends that I've been overreacting. But after the house thing, good riddance. And now in the comments, since her dad has threatened to sue, check with local eviction ordinances. Maybe even consult an attorney friend to make sure you have dotted your I's and crossed your T's on kicking her out. If you haven't already provided a written eviction notice, you might need to do that. And OP replies, I did check with what I needed to do since she is legally a resident of the house. Gave her the required 30 days notice, and my grandparents drafted up an eviction letter. Don't think he can do much since I have all the proof needed that she was never on the deed and wasn't paying rent to me or my grandparents. Your girlfriend's, now ex, mother is one lucky lady. No wonder your ex doesn't know how relationships work. I've also heard it the other way around. Wife needs to cater to all of husband's needs. In either relationship, one person ends up feeling used and unsupported. I'm glad you stood up for yourself. You were willing to make her happy. You did an amazing job with that, but instead of putting up with her spoiled demands, you set your boundary. You will give her what she wants if she reciprocated the same appreciation towards you, but she didn't. You did what you had to do. You ended it. You did the right thing here. It's sad her father doesn't understand that not all people hold the same beliefs he does. It's great that he caters to his wife. Maybe she reciprocates back to him, and his daughter doesn't see that. Maybe his wife doesn't reciprocate anything, but it still works for him and he's happy servicing her every need. It's great that it works for him regardless. You have your dignity to look after. You will not be used for your kindness. Stick to that. Stay kind, but stick to your boundaries. I, 30 male, grew up in a family where women came first. Always. It's toxic as fuck and only leads to weakness and resentment. Luckily, that is much less a part of my life now, and egalitarianism is taking its place. And OP replies, yeah, the men and women first families rarely have good results. I've only ever seen one good turnout with a co-worker's family, but the men and women made sure to tell the kids that it wasn't the kind of dynamic for everyone, or that everyone would tolerate it. Something to discuss. Someone cheated for that dynamic to work, probs. Wear that crown, king. Good game and all that good stuff. What was his, dad's, reaction to her lying about being in the deed? Did he chew his daughter out, or does he still stick up for her actions? And OP says, not sure to be honest. When he told me that, I just had a good laugh, told him she lied, and let him know that I had all the proof needed to show otherwise with my grandparents. If he really wanted to pursue, get in touch with them, and hung up. He's a quiet guy, and she and her sister are the daddy's girl type, so I doubt he would have chewed her out. I don't really care either. The daughter has obviously learned this unhealthy relationship style from her parents. A relationship can only work when both people put in equal effort into it. It may even mean doing things that you don't enjoy because the other person does, although you should never force someone to do something they really don't want to. My first thought was, if I was in his shoes, when the dad called me, I would have responded, "So you're the reason she's like this. Good job messing up your kid." Look, just because you're a doormat doesn't mean I have to be, but at least now I know why your daughter is a spoiled brat. Wow, talk about selfish. I'm glad he dumped her. She is the one who needs to grow up. Sexual and physical selfishness is real, and it's both men and women who can be guilty of it. In my opinion, it's always people who are convinced that life gave them a worse hand in comparison to you, and therefore you should give without getting anything in return. It is literally throwing your love, attention, and energy into a pit that never gets filled. Being angry at these people is useless, and even stupid perhaps. Because the only thing you can do is not believe that you are the one who is going to fix this person. It's just not going to happen, and lots of other men and women make the same mistake of thinking they can love someone enough to fix them. You'll have invested all of that time and energy towards someone who doesn't want to get helped. They want to get fixed and don't realize no one can fix them except themselves.